Welcome. Hey guys, I'm so glad you're here. Before we begin, I want you to settle in, adjust your pillows, and let the weight of the day start to fall away from your shoulders. You've just entered a space designed for one thing: absolute, undisturbed rest. Over the next 3 hours, we are embarking on a journey unlike anything you've experienced. We're going to leave the modern world behind and travel to the most silent, ancient, and breathtaking corners of the earth, from the mist-covered peaks of Bhutan to the glowing blue caves of the deep south. For the first 2 hours, my voice will be your guide, painting vivid landscapes of peace to quiet your racing mind. Then, in the final hour, the stories will fade, leaving you in a sanctuary of pure, healing sound frequencies to lock in a deep, restorative sleep. No more stress, no more noise. Just you, the journey, and the silence. Let's begin our first transition into the heart of the world. Close your eyes and let the weight of the modern world gently drift away as we embark on a journey across the vast oceans of time, traveling back over 4,000 years to a land where the stars felt closer to the earth and the rivers whispered the secrets of the gods. We are traveling to ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, a golden crescent nestled between the life-giving waters of the Tigris and the Euphrates, where the very first cities rose from the dust like waking giants. Imagine yourself standing on the edge of the desert at twilight. The air is cooling now, smelling of dry earth, river reeds, and the faint, sweet scent of burning cedarwood from distant temple hearths. The sky above you is not the sky you know. It is a deep, velvety indigo, unpolluted and vast, crowded with 1,000 diamonds that the ancients believed were the eyes of the celestial beings watching over the fate of kings and commoners alike. Feel the soft, silken sand beneath your feet, still holding the warmth of the afternoon sun, as you walk toward the great city of Ur, its massive ziggurat rising toward the heavens like a mountain made by human hands. This is a world of ritual, of clay and moonlight, and at the heart of this world dwells a woman whose voice would become the first recorded melody in the symphony of human history. Her name is Enheduanna, the high priestess of the moon, and her story is a river that flows through the heart of silence, a narrative of power, exile, and the profound peace found in the act of creation. As we move deeper into this ancient landscape, let your breathing slow, matching the rhythmic flow of the river waters, as we begin to uncover the life of the woman who first dared to say, "I," in a world of silence. The city of Ur is waking up to the silver glow of Nana, the moon god, and the shadows of the date palms stretch long and thin across the mud brick streets where the history of the soul truly began. You are safe here, wrapped in the blanket of antiquity, listening to the echoes of a time when the world was young and every word carved into clay was a sacred act of magic. The great ziggurat of Ur stands before you, a monument of burnt brick and bitumen, its staircases winding upward toward the stars as if inviting the soul to climb beyond the reach of earthly cares. Enheduanna lived within the shadow of this sacred mountain, in the Jaipar, a secluded complex of courtyards and sanctuaries where the air was always thick with the sound of chanting and the rhythmic clinking of lapis lazuli beads. As a princess, the daughter of the mighty Sargon of Akkad, she was born into the chaos of empire building, yet her spirit sought the stillness of the temple, the quiet dignity of the divine. Imagine her walking through these hallowed halls, her linen robes brushing softly against the polished floors, her mind a loom weaving together the complex threads of Sumerian and Akkadian cultures. She was the bridge between two worlds, the diplomat of the spirit, tasked with calming the volatile hearts of 1,000 city-states under her father's rule. In the deep quiet of the night, when the rest of the city slept, she would sit by the light of a flickering oil lamp, her stylus poised over a damp tablet of clay, waiting for the goddess Inanna to speak through her. It was in these moments of profound solitude that the first poems were born, not as mere records of grain or gold, but as the raw, pulsing heart of a human being reaching out to the infinite. Her voice was a calm tide, rising against the shores of history, steady and unwavering, even as the world around her shifted like the desert sands. As you listen to the story of her early years, feel the tranquility of the temple courtyards, where fountains of cool water bubbled in the center of gardens filled with pomegranate trees and silver-leafed willows. The sound of the water is a constant, soothing hum, a reminder that life in the desert is a gift from the hidden depths of the earth. Enheduanna's role was to maintain this balance, to ensure that the gods remained pleased and the seasons continued their predictable dance. She studied the movements of the planets, recording the cycles of the moon with a precision that would baffle later generations, finding a sense of cosmic order in the velvet darkness of the Mesopotamian night. To her, the stars were not distant balls of gas, but the literal footprints of the divine, a map of meaning that she translated into hymns of breathtaking beauty. Each word she chose was deliberate, a stone placed in a wall of protection around her people, a prayer for peace in a time of constant change. You can almost feel the coolness of the clay in her hands, the rhythmic pressure of the reed stylus as it creates the wedge-shaped marks of cuneiform, a language that looks like bird tracks in the snow but carries the weight of a civilization's soul. This was her meditation, her sanctuary, a place where the noise of her father's wars could not reach, and where she could exist simply as a vessel for the eternal. Moving deeper into the heart of the Jaipur, we find ourselves surrounded by the rhythmic pulse of the temple of Nana, the moon god. The air here is different than the bustling marketplaces outside the city walls. It is heavy with the scent of frankincense and the cool, damp breath of thick mud brick walls that have stood for centuries. Enheduanna moves through these spaces not just as a princess, but as the En Priestess, a title that signifies her role as the spiritual spouse of the moon itself. As the silver light of the moon spills through the high, narrow windows of the sanctuary, it illuminates the intricate carvings of bulls and lions that guard the sacred thresholds. Imagine the sound of her footsteps, a soft, rhythmic padding on the woven reed mats, echoing slightly in the vast, vaulted chambers. This is the height of her power, a time when her influence stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean, yet her daily life was governed by a profound and meditative silence. Every morning, before the sun dared to break the horizon, she would ascend the steps of the ziggurat to greet the fading moon, performing libations of clear water and honey, her voice rising in a low, melodic chant that seemed to hold the very sky in place. This ritual was not a chore but a slow dance with the cosmos, a way of anchoring her soul to the steady, unchanging cycles of the heavens. In these moments, the political tensions of her father Sargon's empire, the revolts in the north, the shifting loyalties of the southern governors, felt as distant as the stars themselves. She was the weaver of harmony, the one who translated the chaotic whims of the gods into a language of peace for her people. The rituals she performed were sensory masterpieces designed to induce a state of trance-like calm. Visualize the great copper bowls filled with burning embers, where she would sprinkle rare resins brought by trade caravans from the distant lands of Magan and Meluha. The smoke would rise in blue, swirling ribbons, filling the temple with a fragrance that cleared the mind and stilled the heart. Enheduanna spent hours in contemplation, studying the divine decrees that governed everything from the art of writing to the laws of justice. To her, these were not just abstract concepts but living energies that needed to be balanced through poetry and song. She began to compose her most famous works during this period, the temple hymns, which were like architectural blueprints for the soul. Each hymn was dedicated to a different city and its patron deity, a brilliant political move that unified the fractured land of Sumer through the shared language of beauty. As she wrote, the world around her seemed to slow down. The scratching of her reed stylus on the wet clay became the heartbeat of the room, a steady scritch-scritch that marked the passage of time in a world without clocks. She was recording the first instance of a human being's internal struggle and devotion, creating a bridge between the mortal and the divine that would remain standing long after her empire crumbled into dust. You can feel that same stillness now, the quiet focus of a woman who knew that her words were seeds being planted in the fertile soil of human consciousness. As the years of her priesthood progressed, Enheduanna became the personification of the city's stability. When the people of Ur looked up at the ziggurat at night, they saw the faint glow of her lamps and knew that the high priestess was awake, praying for their safety and the fertility of their fields. The life of the city followed the rhythm of her prayers. During the festival of the new moon, the entire city would fall into a respectful hush, waiting for her to appear on the terrace of the temple. She would be draped in layers of fine wool, dyed in the deep crimson of pomegranate juice and the golden yellow of saffron, her neck adorned with heavy collars of gold and carnelian that glittered like firelight. Yet, despite the opulence, her eyes remained fixed on the horizon, seeking the first sliver of the moon's return. This connection to the natural world, to the moon, the tides of the rivers, and the shifting seasons, gave her a perspective that was both vast and incredibly intimate. She understood that power was not about the sword, but about the ability to remain centered while the world revolved in chaos. This is the lesson she whispers through the millennia to us tonight, that there is a sanctuary within the mind that no external storm can reach. Feel the coolness of the temple night wrapping around you like a silken shawl, the shadows of the pillars standing like silent sentinels, protecting this space of absolute peace. In the quietest hours, Enheduanna would often retreat to her private chambers to reflect on the nature of Inanna, the goddess of both love and war, of morning and evening stars. Inanna was a goddess of contradictions, much like the human heart, and Enheduanna found great solace in exploring these complexities. She wrote of Inanna as a great lady who could turn a man into a woman and a woman into a man, a deity who transcended all boundaries. In doing so, Enheduanna was exploring the fluid nature of her own identity, a princess, a priestess, a poet, and a leader. Her writing became more personal, more raw. She spoke of her own exhaustion, her fears, and her ultimate surrender to the divine will. This honesty is what makes her voice so modern, so relatable across the vast chasm of time. She wasn't just a figurehead, she was a woman who felt the weight of her crown and the heat of her own passions. As you drift further into the story, imagine the texture of the clay tablets she held, the weight of them in her lap, the earthy smell of the river mud, the way the sunlight hit the sharp angles of the cuneiform signs. This was her legacy, a physical manifestation of her thoughts that would eventually be buried by the sands, waiting for thousands of years to be rediscovered and to speak once again. The world of Enheduanna is a world of slow, deliberate movements, where every action has meaning and every silence is pregnant with the possibility of a new beginning. As the moon begins its slow descent toward the western horizon, the atmosphere of our story shifts from the golden peace of the temple to the long, cool shadows of uncertainty. Power in the ancient world was a flickering flame, and even a woman as divine as Enheduanna was not immune to the winds of change. A dark tide began to rise within the city of Ur, a rebellion led by a man named Lugalain, who sought to strip the Akkadian princess of her sacred titles and reclaim the city for his own. Imagine the sudden transition from the rhythmic chanting of priests to the harsh, metallic clatter of bronze spears against shields. The sanctuary of the Jaipar, which had known only the scent of incense and the sound of soft prayers, was suddenly breached by the heavy boots of soldiers. Enheduanna, once the most powerful woman in the world, found herself facing a cold and bitter reality. She was cast out from her home, stripped of her royal robes, and driven into the vast, unforgiving emptiness of the desert. The journey into exile was a walk through the valley of the shadow. Visualize Enheduanna standing on the edge of the great city walls, looking back at the ziggurat for what she believed might be the last time. The desert at night is a place of profound, haunting stillness, where the wind speaks in a language of sighs and the stars are the only lanterns for the weary traveler. As she walked across the silver dunes, the heat of the day replaced by a bone-chilling cold, she did not carry gold or jewels, she carried only her stylus and the memory of her poems. This period of her life was a dark night of the soul, a time of absolute isolation where the titles of princess and priestess meant nothing to the shifting sands. Yet, it was in this very emptiness that her greatest strength was forged. She turned her pain into a masterpiece, composing the Exaltation of Inanna, a poem that remains one of the most powerful cries of the human spirit ever recorded. In the silence of the wilderness, Enheduanna began to write not of the gods' glory, but of her own suffering. She described the Jaipar being burned, her ornaments being torn away, and the feeling of being a bird trapped in a net. Her voice, once a calm river, became a storm of words, a desperate plea for justice sent upward to the celestial heights. Imagine her sitting by a small, flickering fire in the middle of the wasteland, the sparks rising to meet the stars, her fingers trembling as she pressed her truth into the clay. She challenged the goddess Inanna to witness her betrayal, to see the injustice of her exile. This was the moment she truly became the first I in literature, the first person to use the written word to express a personal, internal crisis. The desert became her cathedral, a place where the lack of walls allowed her spirit to expand until it touched the very edges of the universe. The rhythm of her breath became the rhythm of her lines, a steady, hypnotic beat that kept her soul intact while her world fell apart. As you listen to the echoes of her footsteps in the sand, feel the profound calm that comes with total surrender. Enheduanna had lost everything, her home, her status, her comfort, and in that loss, she found an indestructible peace. She realized that the temple was not a building of brick and bitumen, but a state of mind that she carried within her. Even in the harshest exile, the moon still rose, the stars still turned, and the divine laws, still governed the cosmos. This realization is the ultimate lullaby, a reminder that no matter how much the external world changes, there is a core of stillness within us that remains untouched. The desert night, though vast and lonely, was also a place of absolute clarity. There were no distractions, no political games, only the raw dialogue between a woman and her creator. As she lay down on the cool earth, looking up at the rotating heavens, she found a sense of belonging that no king could grant and no rebel could take away. The story of her exile is a story of the resilience of the human voice. It teaches us that words are more durable than stone, and that the spirit can survive even the most brutal transitions. Enheduanna did not simply endure her time in the wilderness, she transformed it into a legacy that would outlast the very empire her father had built. As the night deepens and the air becomes even more still, imagine the weight of her clay tablets, the physical manifestation of her survival, waiting to be found. The rebellion of Lugalain was a temporary ripple in the ocean of time, but Enheduanna's response to it was eternal. She was no longer just a daughter of a king, she was a sovereign of the soul, a woman who had looked into the abyss and found her own light. Feel the steady pulse of her courage as you drift further into the dream of the ancient past, where the desert wind carries the scent of ancient dust and the promise of a new dawn. The darkness of the desert eventually gave way to the pale, golden fingers of a new dawn. Enheduanna's prayers, carved with such raw intensity into her clay tablets, seemed to reach the very ears of the gods. In the city of Ur, the tides turned. The rebellion of Lugalain faltered as the people realized that a city without its spiritual heart was a city without a soul. Her brother, the king Rimesh, eventually crushed the uprising, and the doors of the Jaipar were once again thrown open. But the woman who returned to the temple was not the same woman who had been driven out. She was no longer just a royal appointee, she was a survivor, a sage, and a living legend. Her return was not marked by loud celebrations, but by a deep, resonant silence that commanded respect. Imagine her walking back through the gates of Ur, her feet dusty from the wilderness, her eyes holding the depth of 1,000 starry nights. She resumed her place as the high priestess, but her influence now surpassed politics. She spent her final years in a state of creative grace, refining the hymns that would be studied by scribes for the next 5 centuries. In this final chapter of her life, the rhythm of the temple became her ultimate sanctuary. The days were long and slow, filled with the teaching of younger priestesses and the meticulous preservation of her writings. She knew that her time on earth was a brief spark, but she also knew that the clay she had marked would carry her voice across the vast desert of time. As she grew older, her poems became even more philosophical, focusing on the interconnectedness of all living things and the eternal nature of the divine me. She became a beacon of stability in an empire that was beginning to feel the first tremors of decline. When she finally passed away, she was buried with the highest honors within the sacred grounds of the Jaipar. For a few hundred years, her name was spoken with reverence in every scribal school from Nippur to Babylon. Students copied her works to learn the art of beautiful language, and for a long time, it seemed she would never be forgotten. But time is a relentless tide. As the centuries rolled by, empires rose and fell like the seasonal floods of the Euphrates. The Akkadian language faded, replaced by others. The great city of Ur was eventually abandoned as the rivers shifted their courses, leaving the ziggurat to be swallowed by the encroaching dunes. For nearly 4,000 years, the name of Enheduanna, the world's first author, was completely erased from human memory. Her tablets lay buried under layers of silt and sand, protected by the very earth she had once written about. The world moved on, through the rise of Greece, the fall of Rome, and the birth of the modern age, entirely unaware that the foundations of literature had been laid by a woman in the dust of Mesopotamia. It wasn't until the 1920s, during the excavations by Sir Leonard Woolley, that a small, translucent disc of alabaster was found, bearing her image and her name. This rediscovery was like a ghost waking up after a long sleep. When scholars finally deciphered the cuneiform on her tablets, they were stunned to find a voice that was so clear, so personal, and so ancient. She had reclaimed her place in history, proving that while empires may crumble, the truth of the human heart is indestructible. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, let the story of Enheduanna remind you of the power of resilience. Her voice traveled through 4 millennia of silence to reach us, a gentle whisper across the ages telling us that we are never truly alone, and that our stories matter. The desert wind still blows over the ruins of Ur, but the silence is no longer empty, it is filled with the echoes of the first poet. Feel the heavy, peaceful weight of history settling over you, like the soft silt of the Euphrates, as you surrender to the timeless dark, knowing that even the most forgotten voices eventually find their way home. Close your eyes once more and feel the dry, desert heat of Mesopotamia fade away, replaced by the cool, salt-tinged breeze of the Mediterranean Sea. We are moving forward in time, to the coast of Egypt, where the city of Alexandria glows like a pearl under the North African sun. Imagine yourself walking through the great port, where the water is a brilliant, shimmering turquoise, and the sound of the waves lapping against the stone quays creates a natural, rhythmic lullaby. Rising above the city is the Pharos Lighthouse, one of the wonders of the ancient world, but our destination lies in the heart of the royal quarter. We are entering the museum, the Shrine of the Muses, and within its walls, the great library of Alexandria. As you step from the bright, white heat of the street into the shadow of the massive Corinthian columns, a sudden, profound hush falls over the world. The air inside is still and smells of aged papyrus, dried cedar oil, and the faint, earthy scent of ink. The high ceilings are painted with the constellations of the zodiac, and the floors are made of cool, polished marble that reflects the soft light filtering down from the clerestory windows. In this place, the noise of the world, the shouting of merchants, the clatter of chariots, the politics of empires, simply ceases to exist. This was the world's first true university, a sanctuary where the greatest minds of antiquity came to think, to dream, and to record the secrets of the universe. Imagine the rows upon rows of armaria, the wooden pigeonholes built into the walls, each one filled with thousands of papyrus scrolls wrapped in linen. There were no books as we know them. Instead, there were long sheets of reed paper, rolled tightly and labeled with small ivory tags. You are walking down a long, sun-drenched corridor where the only sound is the occasional, soft rustle of a scroll being unfurled. Here, Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the earth using nothing but shadows and geometry. Here, Aristarchus first suggested that the earth revolved around the sun. The energy of the library is one of deep, focused patience, a reminder that knowledge is a slow, steady fire that warms the soul without burning it. Visualize a small, private reading alcove overlooking a garden filled with papyrus reeds and blooming lotuses. A scholar sits there, his movements slow and deliberate, dipping a reed pen into a pot of dark soot ink. The rhythm of his writing is like a meditation, each letter a careful stroke of intent. You are invited to sit beside him, to feel the weight of centuries of thought pressing gently against the present moment. In the library of Alexandria, time didn't move in a straight line, it swirled in a great, peaceful pool where the wisdom of the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Persians, and the Indians all mingled together. The library was a bridge between cultures, a place where the human mind attempted to map everything from the stars in the heavens to the anatomy of the human heart. As the afternoon sun moves slowly across the marble floor, marking the passage of time in golden squares of light, feel your own thoughts slowing down to match this ancient pace. There is no rush here. The scrolls have waited hundreds of years to be read, and they will wait hundreds more. The library was more than just a building. It was a living, breathing organism of thought. It had its own gardens, its own dining halls, and its own laboratories. At night, when the scholars retired to their quarters, the library was guarded by silence and the soft glow of oil lamps. Imagine the night watchman walking through the stacks, his lamp casting long, dancing shadows against the walls of scrolls. He isn't looking for thieves, for who would steal a thought? He is a guardian of the human legacy. In the quietest hours of the night, the library feels like the center of the universe, a silent engine of civilization. Every scroll represents a life's work, a dream, a discovery, or a poem. As you drift deeper into this mental sanctuary, let the image of the infinite shelves of scrolls wrap around you like a protective cocoon. You are surrounded by the collective memory of humanity, a vast ocean of stories and truths that are as steady and reliable as the tides. Feel the coolness of the marble, the stillness of the air, and the absolute peace of a place dedicated entirely to the pursuit of truth. As the moon rises over the Mediterranean, casting a silver path across the harbor of Alexandria, the library transforms into a realm of deep, academic magic. This is the night of the scholars, a time when the heat of the day has dissipated and the mind becomes sharpest in the cool, still air. Imagine the great bronze doors of the library being pulled shut, the heavy thud echoing through the hollow marble halls, signaling the beginning of the hours of contemplation. Scholars from every corner of the known world, from the rugged mountains of Macedonia to the lush banks of the Ganges, gather in the communal dining halls for quiet conversation before retreating to their private studies. They speak in hushed tones of mathematics, of the music of the spheres, and of the strange, automated machines created by Heron of Alexandria. Heron, a man centuries ahead of his time, filled the library's courtyards with wonders, doors that opened by steam, singing mechanical birds, and fountains that flowed with the precision of a clock. To walk through these halls at night was to walk through a world where the boundary between science and sorcery was thin and beautiful. Picture yourself sitting in a high-backed chair made of fragrant cedarwood, tucked away in the library's medical wing. Nearby, the works of Herophilus, the father of anatomy, lie open on a wooden lectern. The silence is so profound that you can hear the flickering of the oil lamps, a soft, rhythmic hiss and pop as the flame consumes the scented olive oil. The light dances across the walls, illuminating murals of the muses, the goddesses of inspiration. Each breath you take is slow and deep, filling your lungs with the scent of old parchment and the salty mist drifting in from the nearby sea. In this space, there is no anxiety about the future, there is only the eternal present of discovery. You are surrounded by the great books, the lost tragedies of Sophocles and the missing volumes of Aristarchus's astronomy. These are the ghosts of human genius, and in the stillness of the night, their voices feel alive, whispering the secrets of how to measure the soul and how to navigate by the stars. Among the most mysterious sections of the library was the Hall of the Stars, where the ceiling was a perfect map of the night sky, encrusted with lapis lazuli and gold. Here, astronomers spent their nights peering through primitive but effective sighting tubes, recording the positions of the planets with a devotion that bordered on the religious. They understood that to map the stars was to map the mind of the divine. As you imagine looking up at that golden ceiling, feel the vastness of the universe stretching out above you. The library was a microcosm of that vastness, a place where the infinite was captured in ink and held in the palm of a hand. The scholars believed that by organizing knowledge, they were bringing order to the chaos of existence. This sense of order is incredibly soothing. It is the feeling that everything has a place, that every question has an answer waiting to be found in the next scroll. The library was a fortress of logic in a world of superstition, a lighthouse of the mind that never stopped shining, even when the sun went down. However, the peace of Alexandria was a fragile thing. As the night deepens, we must acknowledge the shadows that began to gather at the edges of this sanctuary. Throughout the centuries, the library faced many threats: the fires of war, the shifting priorities of kings, and the eventual rise of empires that valued gold more than scrolls. Yet, in this moment of our story, the library is still whole, still vibrant, and still silent. The tragedy of its loss, the burning of its millions of pages, is a story for another time. Tonight, we dwell only in its glory. We imagine the scrolls that are now lost to us, the true history of the pyramids, the lost plays of the Greek masters, and the secret maps of explorers who sailed beyond the Pillars of Hercules. These lost thoughts are like stars that have gone out but whose light still travels toward us. By thinking of them, we keep the spirit of the library alive. Feel the weight of this collective memory as a gentle, comforting pressure, a reminder that even when things are lost, the act of seeking them is what makes us human. As you prepare to descend into a deeper sleep, imagine the night watchman making his final rounds. He carries a small bronze lamp, and as he passes each shelf, the ivory tags on the scrolls glint like cat's eyes in the dark. He reaches the center of the great hall, where a statue of Serapis stands in silent vigil. He blows out his lamp, and for a moment, the library is plunged into total darkness, save for the brilliant starlight streaming through the roof. The silence is absolute. The knowledge of the world is at rest. You are part of this silence now, a traveler in the halls of eternal wisdom, safe within the walls of a library that no fire can ever truly destroy. The rhythm of the sea outside matches the rhythm of your heart, slow and steady, as you drift into the vast, unwritten pages of your own dreams. We leave the marble halls of Alexandria behind, letting the scent of old papyrus dissolve into the crisp, cool air of the high mountains. We are traveling east now, crossing the vast Silk Road, moving toward the misty peaks of ancient China and the moss-covered temples of Japan. This is the world of the hidden gardens of the Zen masters, a history not of wars or kings, but of the deliberate pursuit of stillness. Imagine yourself standing at the base of a winding stone path in the southern Song dynasty. The air here is thin and sweet, carrying the scent of damp earth, pine needles, and the ethereal fragrance of white plum blossoms. The only sound is the rhythmic, hollow clack of a bamboo water pipe, a shurshurodoshi, as it fills with water, tips over, and strikes a stone, a sound designed specifically to remind the listener of the beauty of passing time. You are walking toward a mountain retreat, a place where the architecture is designed to disappear into nature. The structures are made of weathered wood and paper, fragile yet resilient, built without a single metal nail. As you step onto the wooden veranda of a Zen monastery, the floorboards emit a soft, musical creak, the nightingale floor, designed to sound like birdsong. This is a place of uma, the Japanese concept of negative space, where what is not there is just as important as what is. The garden before you is not filled with colorful flowers, but with silver sand, meticulously raked into patterns that mimic the ripples of a calm ocean. Large, moss-covered rocks sit in the sand like islands in a sea of clouds. As you sit on the edge of the porch, let your gaze rest on these patterns. Each line in the sand was drawn by a monk in a state of moving meditation, a physical prayer for a mind without ripples. In this segment of history, we explore the origins of the tea ceremony, a ritual of ichigo ichi, meaning one time, one meeting. Imagine a small tea hut, no larger than a tiny room, tucked away behind a screen of bamboo. To enter, you must crawl through a low door, a gesture of humility that leaves your status and your worries outside. Inside, the light is filtered through paper screens, creating a soft, amber glow. A single scroll hangs on the wall, and a single flower sits in a vase. The master prepares the tea with movements so slow and precise they seem to stop time. The sound of the boiling water in the iron kettle is likened to the wind sifting through pine trees. As the bitter, vibrant green tea is whisked into a froth, the world outside, the rise and fall of dynasties, the noise of the marketplace, becomes an irrelevant dream. There is only the bowl, the steam, and the breath. The history of these gardens is the history of the human attempt to create a heaven on earth. The Zen masters believed that by pruning a tree or arranging a stone, they were aligning themselves with the fundamental flow of the universe, the Tao. They spent decades watching the way moss grows on a lantern or the way shadows move across a paper wall. This history teaches us that true power lies in wu wei, or effortless action, the art of sailing with the wind rather than rowing against it. As you sit in this mental garden, feel the tension leaving your shoulders, flowing down into the earth like rainwater. The mountains around you are ancient and silent, their peaks hidden in a perpetual shroud of soft, white mist. They have seen centuries of monks come and go, yet they remain unchanged, a testament to the peace that comes from simply being. As the sun sets behind the mountains, painting the mist in shades of violet and pale gold, the monks begin their evening chant. It is a low, vibrating hum that resonates in the chest, a sound that feels as old as the rocks themselves. The garden transforms in the twilight, the white sand glows like moonlight, and the shadows of the pine trees stretch out like long, resting arms. You are safe in this sanctuary of wood and stone. The path you walked to get here is gone, swallowed by the mist, leaving you in a space of perfect, protected isolation. The rhythm of the bamboo water pipe continues, clack, clack, a steady heartbeat for the mountain. You are part of this landscape now, a single leaf on an ancient tree, resting in the absolute certainty that you are exactly where you need to be. Leaving the misty peaks of the east, we travel across the continents once more, following the warm Mediterranean breeze to the heart of Al-Andalus, or Moorish Spain. We are entering the golden age of the Córdoba courtyards, a time when the city of Córdoba was known as the jewel of the world. Imagine a city where the streets are paved with stone and lit by oil lamps, but behind the heavy, arched wooden doors of the houses lies a world of secret, sensory delight. You step through one of these doorways and are immediately greeted by a drop in temperature. This is the courtyard, the patio, the soul of the home. The air here is thick with the intoxicating scent of orange blossoms, jasmine, and damask roses. In the center, a small, elegant fountain carved from white marble overflows into a shallow pool, the sound of the water a constant, crystal-clear trickle that masks the sounds of the outside world. In this era, water was not just a resource, it was a form of living art and a spiritual symbol of purity and life. The architects of Córdoba were masters of hydraulics, bringing water from the distant Sierra Morena mountains to feed thousands of these private oases. As you sit on a bench decorated with cool, hand-painted geometric tiles, shades of cobalt blue, emerald green, and ochre, notice the intricate patterns that repeat infinitely. These patterns, known as arabesques, were designed to lead the mind into a state of contemplation, representing the infinite nature of the universe. There are no images of people or animals here, only the perfect, rhythmic mathematics of God. The walls are covered in stucco carvings so delicate they look like lace frozen in stone, casting soft, complex shadows as the sun moves across the open square of sky above you. Imagine a scholar or a poet resting in this courtyard during the heat of the siesta. In Córdoba, knowledge was as prized as gold. This was a city of 70 libraries and hundreds of schools where Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived and studied in a state of convivencia, or living together. The scholar holds a manuscript written on fine paper, a technology brought from the East, and the ink is a deep, shimmering purple. This is a world of starlit poetry, where verses were written about the reflection of the moon in a pool of water or the way the wind ruffles the leaves of a pomegranate tree. The philosophy here was one of refinement and grace. Life was to be lived with adab, a concept of etiquette that emphasized beauty, kindness, and intellectual curiosity. As you breathe in the cool, damp air of the courtyard, feel your mind becoming as clear and still as the water in the central basin. At night, the Córdoba courtyards became even more magical. Silver lanterns made of pierced copper would be lit, casting thousands of tiny points of light across the tiled floors, making it feel as if you were walking among the stars. The family would gather to listen to the oud, a stringed instrument with a deep, wooden resonance that is the ancestor of the guitar. The music is slow, melodic, and improvisational, mirroring the flow of the water. This history reminds us that even in a world of conflict, humans are capable of creating spaces of absolute harmony and tolerance. The courtyards were designed to be a paradise on earth, a physical manifestation of the descriptions of heaven found in ancient texts. There is a sense of deep security within these thick, whitewashed walls, a feeling that you are protected from the storms of history in a sanctuary of light and scent. As you linger in this starlit garden, the sound of the distant evening call to prayer blends with the bubbling of the fountain, creating a tapestry of sound that is both haunting and deeply peaceful. The orange trees stand like silent guardians, their dark green leaves shimmering in the lamplight. You are invited to let go of the complexities of the modern world and return to a simpler, more sensory existence. The geometry of the tiles, the rhythm of the music, and the scent of the jasmine all work together to anchor you in the present moment. This is the legacy of Al-Andalus, a reminder that beauty is a form of truth, and that stillness is the greatest luxury. As the lanterns flicker and the night grows deep, the water continues its eternal song, whispering of a time when the world was a garden and the mind was a mirror for the stars. We leave the sun-drenched tiles of Spain behind, crossing the vast, dark expanse of the Atlantic to a world that once shimmered like a mirage in the middle of a high-altitude valley. We are arriving at the floating islands of the Aztecs, the legendary city of Tenochtitlan, built upon Lake Texcoco in the heart of ancient Mexico. Imagine a city where there are no dusty roads, only a network of silver canals reflecting a sky so blue it feels like an ocean. The air here is crisp and thin, carrying the scent of damp moss, fresh lake water, and the sweet, earthy aroma of thousands of blooming flowers. You are standing on a chinampa, a floating garden created by human hands, woven from reeds and filled with the richest soil on earth. As you walk, the ground beneath you feels firm yet alive, a secret island held in place by the deep roots of ahujote, water willows that stand like tall, slender sentinels along the water's edge. The life of the chinampas was governed by a rhythm as steady as the breathing of the lake. Imagine the sound of a wooden paddle dipping into the water, plop, swish, plop, as a small dugout canoe, a calai, glides silently past. There are no wheels here, no heavy beasts of burden, only the soft movement of water. The Aztecs believed that their city was the center of the universe, a place where the aquatic and the terrestrial met in perfect balance. As you sit by the edge of a canal, watch the dragonflies with wings like stained glass darting between the stalks of giant maize and the vibrant orange petals of Sempasicle flowers. The sunlight filters through the willow branches, creating a dappled pattern of light and shadow on the water, a natural mosaic that shifts with the breeze. This was a world of flowery wars, but in the gardens, the only battle was the slow, beautiful struggle of a seed breaking through the earth. Deep within the city lay the hidden botanical gardens of the emperors, places like Chapultepec and Huaxtepec, which were the first of their kind in the world. These were not just for food, they were sanctuaries for the soul. Imagine a massive stone basin filled with crystal-clear spring water, where the Moctezuma himself would walk to find clarity. The Aztecs were master botanists, collecting rare orchids, medicinal herbs, and exotic birds from the furthest reaches of their empire. The sound of the gardens was a symphony of nature, the low hum of hummingbirds, the rustle of tropical feathers, and the gentle drip of water from stone conduits. They viewed plants as living deities, each leaf and petal containing a fragment of the divine. As you breathe in the cool, humid air, imagine the texture of the paper made from maguey fibers, where scribes painted intricate codices in colors made from crushed beetles and mountain minerals. The history of these floating gardens is a story of harmony between man and the elements. The Aztecs did not try to conquer the lake, they lived with it, turning a swamp into a paradise. At twilight, the city of Tenochtitlan would begin to glow with the light of thousands of torches reflected in the water, making it look as though the stars had fallen into the lake. The families would gather on their chinampas, the smell of wood smoke and toasted corn wafting through the air, as they listened to the drums of the great temple beating like a slow, distant heart. There is a profound sense of abundance here, a feeling that the earth and the water will always provide if they are treated with respect. This ancient wisdom whispers to us across the centuries, a reminder that we are part of a living system, as interconnected as the roots of the willow trees beneath the lake. As the moon rises over the surrounding volcanic peaks, the canals turn into ribbons of liquid mercury. The city falls into a deep, respectful silence, broken only by the occasional splash of a fish or the call of a night heron. You are cradled in this aquatic cradle, floating between the earth and the stars, safe within the green embrace of the chinampas. The world of the Aztecs was one of immense complexity, yet at its heart, it was as simple as the growth of a leaf. Let the coolness of the lake mist settle over you, a soft blanket of moisture that cleanses the mind and stills the spirit. You are drifting on a floating island of time, moving slowly through the dark, still waters of history, toward the peaceful shores of sleep. Leaving the vibrant waters of Tenochtitlan, we travel across the vast Atlantic once more, moving toward the high, rugged plateaus of the Horn of Africa. We are arriving in the mystical highlands of ancient Ethiopia, specifically to the holy city of Lalibela. Imagine a landscape of red volcanic rock and thin, cool mountain air that tastes of wild thyme and highland mist. We are not looking for buildings that rise toward the clouds, instead, we are descending into the earth. Here, in the 12th century, King Lalibela sought to create a New Jerusalem by carving 11 monolithic churches not from the ground, but into the ground. You are standing on the edge of a deep trench, looking down at the roof of a church that is a single, solid piece of living stone. As you descend the hand-carved stone staircases, the temperature begins to drop, and the noise of the wind above fades into a profound, heavy silence. The air here is ancient and still, smelling of centuries of melting beeswax, sun-dried frankincense, and the cool, mineral scent of damp basalt. You enter a narrow, torchlit tunnel, a passage between the world of the living and the world of the spirit. The walls are smooth and cool to the touch, polished by the hands of millions of pilgrims who have passed through these shadows over the last 800 years. Emerging into the interior of a church like Beit Medhain Elam, you are greeted by massive stone pillars that hold up a ceiling they were never separated from. This is architecture born of patience, where every arch and every window was a slow, deliberate act of devotion. In the dim, golden light of the beeswax candles, you see the dabtera, the traditional cantors, resting against their wooden prayer sticks. They move with a rhythmic, hypnotic grace, their voices rising in a low, guttural chant in the ancient language of Guizi. The sound is not like the soaring choirs of Europe, it is a grounding, earthy vibration that seems to come from the very rocks themselves. Imagine sitting on a thick, hand-woven rug on the stone floor, watching the smoke of the incense curl around the heads of carved saints and angels on the walls. The colors of the murals are muted, deep ochre, burnt sienna, and indigo, painted with pigments made from the earth you are currently sitting within. This is a history of endurance, a reminder that the most lasting things are often those that are hidden beneath the surface. The life of the monastery follows the solar clock, a rhythm dictated by the movement of the sun across the trenches. When the sun is directly overhead, the courtyards are filled with a brilliant, blinding light. As it moves, the shadows stretch long and cool, turning the red rock into a deep, comforting purple. There is no sense of hurry here. The monks spend their days in a cycle of prayer, study, and the slow, meticulous copying of ancient manuscripts on vellum. They believe that by staying within the stone, they are closer to the heart of the world. As you breathe in the cool, subterranean air, feel the weight of the mountain above you not as a burden, but as a protective shield. You are safe in the womb of the earth, far beneath the reach of the chaotic modern world, wrapped in a silence that has remained unbroken for nearly 1,000 years. As the night falls over the Ethiopian highlands, the stars appear with a clarity that is only possible at such high altitudes. Down in the trenches, the churches become dark, silent cathedrals of stone. The only sound is the distant, rhythmic drumming of a cabaro, a traditional drum, calling the faithful to the midnight vigil. The vibrations travel through the rock, a steady, soothing pulse that matches the beating of your own heart. You are part of this living stone now, a quiet witness to a history that was carved in silence and sustained by faith. Let the coolness of the basalt and the scent of the incense carry you deeper into the dark, peaceful valleys of sleep, where the mountains stand guard and the earth whispers its oldest secrets. Leaving the rugged mountains of Ethiopia, we travel across the vast, frozen plains of Central Asia, following the north wind until we reach the heart of the Ming dynasty in China. We are arriving at the winter palaces of the Forbidden City in Beijing. Imagine a world of deep reds and imperial yellows, now blanketed in a heavy, silent layer of white snow. The air is sharp and crystalline, so cold that it turns your breath into soft clouds of silver mist. You are standing in the center of the Meridian Courtyard, a space so vast that the falling snowflakes seem to disappear before they hit the ground. The hundreds of thousands of glazed roof tiles, usually glowing like gold, are now matte and soft under the winter frost, and the marble bridges over the Golden Water River look like ribbons of carved ice. As you move deeper into the palace complex, the biting wind is blocked by high, crimson walls, and the atmosphere changes from the harsh cold to a controlled, imperial warmth. You step onto the kangs, raised brick platforms that are heated from beneath by hidden charcoal flues. The heat is not aggressive, it is a steady, radiating warmth that seeps into your bones, smelling faintly of clean wood ash and dried orange peels. Inside the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the air is thick with the scent of sandalwood burning in massive bronze censers. The floor is made of golden bricks, clay fired for months and soaked in tung oil until they shine like dark mirrors. Every footstep is muffled by heavy silk carpets embroidered with dragons chasing pearls through clouds of thread. In the deep winter, the life of the palace slowed to a meditative crawl. The emperor and his court would spend hours in the garden of mental cultivation, watching the three friends of winter, the pine, the bamboo, and the plum tree, endure the cold. Imagine a small pavilion made of dark rosewood, where a scholar official is preparing a hot infusion of goji berries and ginger. The only sound is the soft thud of snow sliding off a cedar branch or the rhythmic clink of a porcelain lid against a tea bowl. This was a time for internal reflection, for writing poetry on silk fans using frozen ink that had to be carefully thawed over a brazier. The philosophy was one of Han, the appreciation of the cold, understanding that the stillness of winter is necessary for the rebirth of spring. At night, the Forbidden City became a fortress of shadows and light. Thousands of paper lanterns, painted with scenes of ancient myths, would be lit, casting a warm, flickering glow across the snowdrifts. The palace eunuchs would walk the corridors with felt-soled shoes, moving like ghosts through the silent courtyards to ensure the fires beneath the floors never went out. There is a profound sense of order here, a feeling that even the winter is a guest of the emperor, held at bay by the architecture of harmony. As you sit by a window covered in translucent rice paper, watching the shadows of the bamboo dance in the lamplight, feel the absolute security of these walls. You are at the very center of the Middle Kingdom, wrapped in layers of silk and history, protected from the wilderness by 1,000 years of tradition. The winter rituals of the palace teach us the beauty of waiting. Just as the plum blossoms wait beneath the snow to bloom, the mind finds its greatest strength in periods of quiet withdrawal. As the night deepens and the temperature outside drops further, the warmth of the palace seems to grow more intimate. The distant sound of a bronze bell marks the hour, its deep vibration traveling through the cold air like a ripple in a frozen pond. You are invited to sink into this imperial stillness, letting the heat of the charcoal and the scent of the sandalwood lull you into a state of perfect repose. The snow continues to fall, a silent white curtain closing over the world, leaving you safe in the warm, golden heart of the palace. We leave the snowy silence of the forbidden city behind, traveling west toward the soft, humid air of the Adriatic Sea. We are arriving in ancient Venice, the city of marble and water, during the height of its maritime glory. Imagine yourself on a gondola at midnight, gliding through a world where there are no streets, only liquid mirrors reflecting the moon. The air is cool and smells of salt, aged oak, and the faint, sweet scent of damp stone. The only sound is the rhythmic slap of the water against the ancient foundations and the long, slow creak of the oar in its wooden lock. In Venice, the buildings do not sit on land, they rest on a forest of millions of petrified oak and larch piles driven deep into the mud of the lagoon. As you pass the great palaces, the palazzi, look at the water gates, the marble stairs that disappear into the dark, shimmering depths. This is a city built on the impossible, a place where stone floats. Imagine stepping off your boat and onto the cool, smooth floor of a private courtyard. Here, the architecture is Venetian Gothic, with arches that look like frozen lace and balconies made of pink Istrian stone. The city was designed to catch the light, to shimmer and change color as the sun and moon move across the sky. We travel across the lagoon to the island of Murano, the sanctuary of the glassblowers. In the middle of the night, the island glows with a hidden fire. Imagine the interior of a 15th-century furnace room. The air is warm and heavy, smelling of wood smoke and melting sand. The glassmasters move with the grace of dancers, pulling molten cristallo from the heat and blowing it into shapes as delicate as dragonflies' wings. This was a secret history. The glassblowers were forbidden from leaving the city on pain of death, for their knowledge was more valuable than gold. As you watch a master shape a goblet, notice the absolute focus, the way the glowing orange glass turns into clear, frozen light. It is a reminder that beauty is born from heat and pressure, stilled into a permanent state of grace. At night, Venice becomes a city of masks and shadows. The Great Canal is a dark ribbon, and the smaller calli, the narrow alleys, are lit only by small oil lamps hanging from iron brackets. This was a world of il silenzio, where the Republic maintained order through a quiet, unseen power. But inside the libraries of the Doge's palace, the atmosphere is one of profound intellectual peace. Imagine a room filled with maps of the world, drawn on goatskin parchment, showing the routes to the Spice Islands and the Silk Road. The Venetian scholars sat here, listening to the tide rise and fall against the walls, understanding that their entire world was a delicate balance between the sea and the sky. As you drift further into sleep, imagine the Acqua Alta, the high tide, slowly creeping up the marble steps of St. Mark's Square. The water covers the intricate mosaics of the ground, turning the entire square into a shallow, reflecting pool. The bells of the campanile strike the hour, a deep, bronze sound that vibrates through the mist. There is no city on earth as quiet as Venice at night. It is a city of whispers and echoes. Feel the gentle, rocking motion of the water beneath you, as if the entire city is a giant cradle. The stone palaces, the glass furnaces, and the ancient maps are all safe within the embrace of the lagoon. You are floating in a city of dreams, where the boundary between the solid and the fluid has vanished, leaving you in a state of perfect, watery peace. We leave the salt-misted canals of Venice behind, crossing the Atlantic once more to enter the deep, emerald heart of the Yucatan Peninsula. We are arriving at the observatories of the Maya, specifically the great city of Chichen Itza, during a night of perfect celestial clarity. Imagine standing at the base of El Caracol, the snail, a circular stone tower rising above the jungle canopy. The air here is heavy and humid, smelling of damp earth, crushed limestone, and the intoxicating perfume of night-blooming jasmine. The soundscape is a dense, rhythmic tapestry, the high-pitched hum of cicadas, the distant, booming call of a howler monkey, and the soft rustle of jaguar palms in the tropical breeze. As you ascend the narrow, spiraling stone stairs inside the observatory, the noise of the jungle begins to recede, replaced by a cool, limestone silence. You reach the upper chamber, where rectangular windows are cut into the thick walls with mathematical precision. These are not windows for looking at the landscape, they are frames for the universe. Imagine an ancient Maya astronomer priest standing beside you, draped in a cloak of iridescent quetzal feathers that shimmer like liquid emerald in the starlight. He is not looking at the stars with a telescope, he is using a cross-stick device and a bowl of still, dark water to track the reflection of Venus. The water is so calm it looks like a black mirror, holding the light of the planet with absolute stillness. The Maya did not view time as a straight line, but as a series of interlocking, golden gears. To them, history was a vast, repeating song, and by tracking the stars, they were reading the sheet music of the gods. As you sit on the cool stone ledge, imagine the focus required to calculate cycles that span thousands of years. They mapped the movements of Mars, the eclipses of the Moon, and the 584-day cycle of Venus with an accuracy that rivals modern satellites. The rhythm of their lives was dictated by this long count, a deep, cosmic heartbeat that made individual worries feel as small as a grain of maize. There is a profound peace in this perspective, the realization that we are part of a celestial mechanism so vast and orderly that nothing is ever truly lost. In the deep quiet of the jungle night, the temple complex below looks like a collection of silver ghosts. The Great Pyramid of Kukulkan stands in the distance, its shadows forming a perfect geometric pattern. The Maya believed that at night, the sun traveled through the Xibalba, the underworld, only to be reborn at dawn. This cycle of death and rebirth was mirrored in everything they did. Imagine the scent of copal resin burning in a small clay brazier nearby, its sweet, heavy smoke rising toward the Milky Way, which they called the World Tree. The smoke acts as a bridge between the earth and the sky, carrying the silent prayers of the city upward. You are suspended here, between the dark roots of the jungle and the infinite branches of the stars. As you prepare for sleep, let the ancient Maya concept of time wrap around you. There is no need to rush, for the cycles will always return. The stars you see through the limestone windows have been traveling for light years to reach your eyes, steady and unchanging. The jungle continues its nocturnal pulse, a living, breathing lung that surrounds the stone city. Feel the coolness of the observatory walls and the absolute stillness of the water in the basin. You are a passenger on a stone ship sailing through the ocean of infinity, guided by the same stars that the Maya tracked 10 centuries ago. The darkness is not empty, it is full of the wisdom of the ages. Sink into the deep, rhythmic shadows of the Yucatan, where the stones remember the stars and the night is a gateway to eternity. Leaving the jungle heights of the Maya, we travel across the vast oceans to the edge of the Thar Desert in ancient India. We are arriving at the blue city of Jodhpur, during the golden era of the Rajput kings. Imagine a city where every house is painted the color of the deep sky, a vibrant, calming indigo meant to reflect the heat and keep the residents cool. You are standing at the base of the Marangar Fort, a massive stone citadel that rises 500 feet above the city like a mountain carved by giants. The air here is dry and warm, smelling of parched earth, dried marigolds, and the faint, spicy aroma of cumin and cardamom drifting from the palace kitchens. As you ascend the winding stone ramps of the fort, passing through 7 massive gates, the noise of the bustling bazaars below begins to fade. You enter the Pustak Prakash, the royal library of the Maharaja. The temperature drops instantly behind the thick sandstone walls. This is a sanctuary of silence, where the light is filtered through intricate jolly screens, sandstone carved into lace-like patterns that scatter the sun into thousands of soft, golden diamonds on the floor. The air inside is heavy with the scent of sandalwood oil used to preserve the manuscripts and the earthy, sweet smell of handmade paper. In this library, the history of the world was written on papyrus, long, narrow strips of paper or palm leaf. Imagine a scholar sitting cross-legged on a white cotton gaddi, cushion, his back straight, his eyes focused on a manuscript of the Mahabharata. He uses a reed pen and ink made from crushed lampblack and silver dust. The rhythm of his work is slow and sacred, every letter is a meditation. These manuscripts cover everything from the movement of the planets to the secret properties of desert herbs and the complex mathematics of musical ragas. As you sit in this cool, shaded hall, notice how the silence is not empty, it is of living silence, filled with the weight of centuries of wisdom. At twilight, the blue houses below begin to glow with the light of small oil lamps, looking like a reflection of the Milky Way on the desert floor. In the library, the pundits, scholars, gather to discuss philosophy as the desert wind whistles softly through the high battlements. They speak of the Atman, the soul, and the idea that the universe is a dream within the mind of the divine. This perspective brings a profound sense of calm, the realization that the storms of life are merely ripples on the surface of a deep, still ocean. You are invited to let your own thoughts settle, like the dust of the desert after the sun goes down. As the night deepens, the Marangar Fort becomes a silent sentinel under the moon. The blue city below is a sea of tranquility. The only sound is the distant, rhythmic chanting of a priest in a nearby temple and the soft rustle of silk curtains in the palace breeze. You are safe within these walls of red sandstone, protected by the history of 1,000 warriors and the peace of 1,000 scholars. Let the scent of the sandalwood and the coolness of the stone lull you into a deep, dreamless sleep. You are resting at the heart of the blue city, where time is measured not by clocks, but by the slow, turning shadows of the desert stars. We leave the sapphire-colored streets of the desert behind, crossing the globe once more to the towering, frost-touched peaks of the Andes Mountains. We are arriving at the Island of the Sun, nestled in the center of Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake on Earth. Imagine yourself standing at an altitude where the air is so thin and pure it feels like drinking cold water. The sky here is a deep, impossible navy blue, and the lake stretches out before you like a vast, shimmering sheet of sapphire glass. The air is crisp, smelling of wild sage, dry mountain grass, and the clean, mineral scent of the deep Andean waters. You are standing on the ancient stone steps of the Escalera del Inca. The soundscape is one of absolute, high-altitude stillness, broken only by the rhythmic, hollow slap of the lake waves against the shore and the distant, mournful whistle of the wind through the ichu grass. As you walk up the 206 steps toward the sacred spring, the water flows beside you in a series of stone channels, a constant, soothing murmur that has not stopped for over 5 centuries. The Incas believed this was the birthplace of the sun itself, the place where light first broke through the eternal darkness to create the world. Every stone here was laid with a sense of cosmic purpose, fitted together so perfectly that not even a knife blade can pass between them. Visualize a traditional balsa de tatora, a boat made of tightly woven golden reeds, gliding silently across the lake. There are no engines, no metal, only the soft rustle of the reeds as they part the water. The Inca priests who lived on this island spent their lives in a state of perpetual ritual, observing the movement of the sun across the Titicaca sandstone boulders. They viewed the lake as a womb, a place of origin and return. As you sit on a sun-warmed rock overlooking the water, imagine the perspective of someone who sees the sun not just as a star, but as a father. This connection to the celestial bodies provides a profound sense of belonging, a feeling that you are a child of the universe, protected by the same light that has warmed these stones since the beginning of time. Inside the Chincana, a labyrinthine stone complex used as a sanctuary, the temperature is cool and the light is golden. The walls are made of dark, heavy stone that holds the silence of the mountains. Imagine a priest preparing an offering of coca leaves, laying them out in a perfect circle on a flat stone altar. The ritual is slow, deliberate, and silent. The scent of burning Palo Santo wood fills the chamber, a sweet, resinous smoke that clears the mind and settles the spirit. In this high-altitude sanctuary, you are closer to the stars than almost anywhere else on Earth. The thin air makes the constellations look larger, brighter, and closer, as if you could reach out and touch the silver path of the Milky Way. As the sun finally dips below the jagged peaks of the Cordillera Real, the lake turns from sapphire to a deep, velvety violet. The silence of the island becomes even more profound. You are invited to wrap yourself in a blanket of soft alpaca wool, feeling its heavy, natural warmth against the mountain chill. The rhythm of the water against the shore is a natural metronome, slowing your pulse and calming your mind. You are safe on the sacred island, held in the lap of the ancient Andes, far above the noise and chaos of the lower world. Let the thin, pure air and the memory of the sun's birth carry you into a sleep as deep and peaceful as the waters of Titicaca. You are resting at the top of the world, where the earth meets the sky in a final, golden embrace. We leave the high, thin air of the Andes behind, traveling across the vast Atlantic toward the cool, mist-shrouded forests of the northern Baltic. We are arriving at the amber shores, during a time when amber was known as the gold of the north. Imagine standing on a beach at dawn, where the Baltic Sea meets a primeval forest of towering pines. The air is sharp and brisk, smelling of salt, wet sand, and the deep, resinous perfume of ancient trees. The soundscape is a rhythmic, foggy lullaby, the low, rolling boom of the cold waves and the sighing of the wind through the needles of the amber pines. In this era, amber was not just a gemstone, it was believed to be the hardened tears of the sun or the congealed sweat of the gods. As you walk along the shoreline after a storm, the water recedes to reveal small, glowing nuggets of gold-colored resin scattered among the pebbles and seaweed. You pick one up, it is light, warm to the touch, and translucent. When you hold it up to the pale morning light, you see a tiny prehistoric leaf or a delicate insect trapped inside, frozen in time for millions of years. This is a history of preservation, a reminder that even the most fragile things can be held safe within the embrace of the earth. Imagine entering an ancient, amber workshop within a tribal settlement. The room is heated by a central hearth burning dried peat and pine logs. The air is thick with the scent of succinic incense, the natural aroma produced when amber dust is heated. A master craftsman sits on a stool of reindeer hide, using a bow drill and fine sand to polish a large amber disc. The rhythm is steady, shushu, shushu. He is creating a sunstone, a talisman meant to bring light to the long, dark winters of the north. As you watch the golden dust fall like honey-colored snow, feel the patience of the craft. In the Baltic, time was measured by the seasons and the slow accumulation of resin, a pace that honors the natural world. The Amber Road was a network of forest trails that connected these misty shores to the sun-drenched empires of the Mediterranean. Imagine a trade caravan resting by a campfire in the deep woods. The traders speak in hushed tones of the great cities of the south, while the northern stars twinkle through the canopy of the pines. There is a profound sense of connection here, the idea that a piece of stone from a cold northern beach could end up on the necklace of an Egyptian pharaoh or a Roman empress. This interconnectedness is a calming thought. It reminds us that we are all part of a single, vast story, woven together by the threads of trade and curiosity. As the night falls over the Baltic, the fog rolls in from the sea, swallowing the forest and the shore in a soft, gray blanket. The world becomes muffled and intimate. You are invited to rest in a longhouse built of sturdy timber, wrapped in thick furs that smell of wood smoke and the forest. The rhythmic sound of the waves continues outside, a steady, oceanic heartbeat that lulls the land to sleep. You are safe in the heart of the north, protected by the ancient trees and the golden spirit of the amber. Let the coolness of the mist and the warmth of the hearth carry you into a deep, fossilized peace, where time stands still and the light of the sun is captured forever in a drop of golden resin. Close your eyes and feel the cool mist of the Baltic Sea evaporate into a dry, warm, and velvet-like breeze. We are traveling to the vast, arid heart of the Persian plateau during the golden age of the Silk Road. Imagine you are part of a slow-moving caravan, a rhythmic procession of camels and weary travelers crossing the endless dunes under a sky so vast it feels like it could swallow the earth. The sun has just dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky painted in shades of bruised purple, deep indigo, and burnt orange. In the distance, rising from the shimmering heat of the desert like a fortress of hospitality, is the caravanserai, the palace for caravans. The soundscape is a steady, hypnotic pulse, the rhythmic clink-clink of the heavy bronze bells hanging from the lead camel's neck, and the soft, rhythmic thud of wide hooves hitting the packed sand. As the caravan approaches the massive, arched gateway of the caravanserai, the world changes. You pass through a heavy timber door, studded with iron, leaving the vast, lonely emptiness of the desert behind. Inside, you find a world of perfect symmetry and profound safety. This is a square courtyard, open to the stars, surrounded by 2 stories of arched alcoves and sturdy brick stables. The air here is different, it is still, protected from the desert wind, and it smells of roasting coffee, dried apricots, exotic saffron, and the sweet, musky scent of expensive frankincense. In the center of the courtyard, a small stone pool of water, the house, reflects the first stars of the evening. The sound of the water, a gentle, bubbling trickle from a central fountain, is the most beautiful music a desert traveler can hear. It is the sound of life, of survival, and of absolute rest. Imagine yourself sitting on a thick, hand-woven Persian rug spread out in one of the private arched alcoves. The rug is a masterpiece of dark reds and deep blues, its wool soft and warm against the cool stone floor. You lean back against a silk bolster, and for the first time in weeks, you feel the tension leave your weary muscles. Here, in the caravanserai, the hierarchy of the outside world disappears. The merchant, the scholar, the monk, and the camel driver all sit together, unified by the shared silence of the desert night. As the night deepens, the travelers begin the ritual of the evening meal. This is not a rushed affair, but a slow, sensory experience. Imagine a heavy copper tray being placed before you, laden with steaming pilaf flavored with barberries and almonds, and skewers of meat grilled over charcoal. The scent of the wood smoke, derived from desert scrub and fruitwood, wafts through the courtyard, a comforting, domestic aroma that signals the end of the day's labor. You sip on a small glass of tea, sweetened with a jagged piece of yellow rock sugar. The warmth of the glass in your hand and the steam rising in the cool night air act as a final anchor, tethering you to this moment of absolute peace. The conversations around the courtyard are hushed, a melodic murmur of a dozen different languages, Persian, Sogdian, Chinese, and Arabic, all blending into a single, soothing hum. Beside you, a merchant from the east slowly unfurls a roll of silk. In the flickering light of the oil lamps, the fabric looks like liquid silver, shimmering with a life of its own. He speaks of the long journey from the Jade Gate, of the mountain passes choked with snow, and of the silent cities of the Taklamakan. His voice is a low, rhythmic drone, a storytelling cadence that has been used for thousands of years to pass the time in the wilderness. You don't need to understand every word to feel the weight of his journey. The rhythm of his voice is enough to lull you into a state of deep, contemplative stillness. This is the history of the Silk Road, not a history of maps and dates, but a history of shared breaths and stories told in the shadows of high brick walls. Now, look up. Because the caravanserai is far from any city, the sky above the courtyard is a masterpiece of celestial light. The Milky Way is a thick, glowing river of stars, so bright it casts soft shadows on the courtyard floor. The Persians were master astronomers, and as you gaze upward, you realize that these stars were the only maps they had. They saw the constellations as a great, eternal clock, a reminder that the universe moves with a precision that far exceeds human understanding. There is a profound comfort in this order. As you watch a shooting star streak across the indigo void, feel your mind expanding to match the scale of the cosmos. The desert outside is vast and dangerous, but here, within the thick walls of the caravanserai, you are held in a cradle of stone and starlight. The camels in the stables have fallen silent, their heavy breathing a slow, rhythmic bellows that echoes through the lower arches. The lanterns are being dimmed one by one, leaving the courtyard in a soft, silver twilight. The only sound remains the constant, rhythmic bubbling of the central fountain, drip, ripple, drip. It is the heartbeat of the oasis. You wrap yourself in a heavy wool cloak, the weight of it a comforting embrace against the midnight chill. The desert wind sighs against the outer walls, a distant, lonely sound that only serves to make the interior feel more secure, more intimate. You are safe. You are rested. You are part of a 1,000-year-old tradition of travelers finding peace in the heart of the waste. As you drift further into the dream of the Silk Road, let the scent of the dying charcoal embers and the sound of the water carry you away. The desert is a place of infinite silence, and tonight, that silence is your sanctuary. The journey tomorrow will be long, but for now, there is only the rug, the stars, and the rhythmic pulse of the fountain. You are sinking into the deep, indigo velvet of the Persian night, where the sand remembers the footsteps of the past and the stars guide you toward the peaceful horizon of sleep. Leaving the starlit courtyard of the Persian desert behind, we begin a slow, ascending journey toward the roof of the world. We are traveling to the crystal caves of the Himalayan monks, tucked away in the jagged, snow-draped peaks of ancient Tibet. Imagine the transition from the dry heat of the dunes to an air that is thin, piercingly cold, and so pure it feels like breathing in the essence of the stars. You are walking along a narrow, winding path carved into the side of a mountain, where the only boundary between you and the vast, white valley below is a line of colorful prayer flags, snapping rhythmically in the high-altitude wind. The soundscape here is unlike any other. It is a deep, resonant silence that hums with the vibration of the earth itself. Every few minutes, the silence is broken by the long, low groan of a dungchan, a 12-foot copper horn. The sound is a deep, subterranean bass that echoes off the surrounding glaciers, a sonic wave that seems to ground the soul to the very foundation of the mountains. As you approach a small cave entrance, draped in a heavy curtain of yak wool, the biting wind suddenly vanishes. You step inside, and the atmosphere shifts into a cocoon of warmth and profound spiritual stillness. The air inside the cave is thick and sweet, smelling of burning juniper incense and the nutty, comforting aroma of hundreds of flickering yak butter lamps. These lamps, made of beaten copper and silver, cast a soft, golden glow that dances across the walls, which are encrusted with natural quartz crystals. In the light, the crystals shimmer like internal stars, making it feel as though the mountain itself is alive and dreaming. You see a monk seated on a simple wooden platform, draped in heavy robes of deep maroon and saffron. He is not moving, he is a statue of flesh and bone, his breath so slow and shallow it is almost imperceptible. This is the history of inner heat, the monks who could sit in sub-zero temperatures and melt the snow around them simply through the power of their focused mind. Visualize the walls of the cave, adorned with tankas, intricate silk paintings of mandalas and deities. These are maps of the internal landscape, designed to guide the meditator through the complex layers of the human consciousness. The geometry of the mandalas mirrors the geometry of the crystals in the walls. Everything is connected, from the smallest grain of sand to the highest peak of Mount Kailash. As you sit on a felt rug, the cold of the mountain feels distant and powerless. You are wrapped in a blanket of absolute presence. The monk begins a low, guttural chant, a throat singing that produces 3 notes at once. It is a sound that vibrates in your chest, a rhythmic, haunting melody that bypasses the ears and speaks directly to the heart. This is the history of the Great Silence. In these high caves, the monks spent years in solitary retreat, studying the nature of the mind. They believed that the mind is like a turbulent ocean, and only by sitting still can the silt settle and the water become clear enough to reflect the sky. As you listen to the rhythmic drip-drip of melting ice from a stalactite into a silver bowl, feel your own thoughts beginning to settle. The worries of the valley, the politics, the noise, the endless striving, cannot reach this altitude. They are like clouds far below your feet, drifting harmlessly over the lower hills. Here, there is only the breath, the gold of the lamp, and the infinite patience of the stone. As the night deepens, the monk pauses his chant. The silence that follows is even deeper than before, a pregnant silence that feels full of wisdom and light. Outside, the moon rises over the Everest range, turning the world into a landscape of silver and shadow. The snow on the peaks glows with an ethereal light, as if the mountains themselves are radiating peace. You are safe in this high sanctuary, protected by the thick walls of the crystal cave and the centuries of prayers that have been soaked into its stones. There is a sense of immense, cosmic security here, a feeling that you are resting in the very palm of the divine. As you drift toward sleep, let the image of the flickering butter lamp be your last thought. The flame is steady, unaffected by the storms outside, a symbol of the indestructible spark of peace within you. The rhythm of the longhorns continues in the distance, a slow, fading pulse that carries you over the white peaks and into the vast, indigo emptiness of the night sky. You are floating above the world, weightless and free, sinking into a sleep as deep and eternal as the Himalayan snows. I apologize for the shift in language. Let's return to our atmospheric journey in English, maintaining that slow, rhythmic pace for your relaxation. We leave the misty volcanic slopes of the Azores behind, crossing the Mediterranean once more to return to the edge of the Egyptian sands. This time, we are not in the bright halls of the Great Library, but beneath the city itself. Part 16, The Silent Catacombs and the Hidden Archives. Imagine descending a spiral staircase carved directly into the bedrock of Alexandria. As you move deeper, the humid salt air of the harbor is replaced by a profound, dry coolness. This is the realm of the catacombs of Qam el-Shokafa, where the architecture of ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome bleeds together into a silent, subterranean sanctuary. The walls are a pale, dusty limestone, smooth to the touch and radiating a stillness that has been undisturbed for nearly 2,000 years. As you reach the bottom, you find yourself in a rotunda lit only by the soft, amber glow of oil lamps placed in small wall niches. The light doesn't reach the corners, leaving the vast chambers in a state of eternal twilight. Here, the silence is heavy, not an empty silence, but one filled with the weight of history. You wander into a side chamber that was once a secret library, a hidden annex where forbidden scrolls were kept away from the fires of the surface world. The air here smells of cedarwood oil and ancient dust. Imagine sitting on a stone bench, watching the shadows of carved serpents and jackal-headed gods dance on the walls. The flickering flames of the lamps create a rhythmic pulse, a visual heartbeat for the underground city. In this hidden archive, there is no sense of time. Day and night are meaningless, there is only the slow, steady endurance of the stone. You feel completely shielded from the chaos of the world above. Between these thick layers of earth and rock, you are unreachable. Visualize reaching out to touch a papyrus scroll that has rested on a limestone shelf since the time of the Ptolemies. The texture is dry and fibrous, a whisper of a civilization long gone. There is a deep, meditative comfort in knowing that despite the rise and fall of empires, these quiet spaces remain. The catacombs act as a giant, stone muffler, absorbing all anxiety and noise. Your breathing slows down to match the rhythm of the dripping water from a distant, unseen limestone vein. Drip, pause, drip. As the night deepens, you find a small, private alcove lined with soft linen cushions. The floor is covered in a fine layer of desert sand that has sifted down through the centuries, making every movement silent. You lie back, looking up at the ceiling where faded blue stars were painted long ago to mimic the night sky. You are in the heart of the earth, cradled by the history of Alexandria, safe in a fortress of silence that no storm can ever shake. The lamps begin to burn low, the orange flames shrinking until they are just tiny, glowing embers. The darkness that follows is soft and welcoming, like a heavy velvet blanket. You are drifting now, sinking through the layers of the past, moving away from the light of the world into the deep, restorative dark of the hidden archives. Sleep comes as a silent tide, filling the stone chambers and carrying you into a dreamless, eternal peace. Leaving the limestone silence of the Egyptian underground, we fly toward the rising sun, crossing the vast Indian subcontinent to reach the emerald highlands of Myanmar. We are arriving at Lake Inal, a world that exists entirely upon the water, where the boundary between the earth and the sky is blurred by a perpetual, silver mist. Part 17, The Floating Serenity of Lake Inal. Imagine waking in a house made of golden teak and woven bamboo, perched high above the water on slender wooden stilts. The air is cool and sweet, smelling of damp reeds, blooming lotus flowers, and the faint, woodsy aroma of breakfast fires. There are no roads here, no sound of engines, only the vast, liquid mirror of the lake stretching toward the blue Shan hills. The soundscape of Inal is a masterpiece of rhythmic calm. You hear the soft shush-shush of a paddle moving through the water. This is the home of the Intha fishermen, who row with one leg wrapped around an oar, a movement so fluid and graceful it looks like a slow-motion dance. As they glide past, their conical bamboo nets rise and fall in a steady, hypnotic rhythm. The water is so still that the ripples from the boats take minutes to reach the shore, gently lapping against the wooden pillars of your balcony. Lap, slap, lap. You step onto a small wooden boat and travel toward the floating gardens. These are not islands of dirt, but carpets of tangled water hyacinth and reeds, anchored to the bottom with long bamboo poles. The farmers have spent centuries building these gardens, layer by layer, until they are thick enough to walk on. Imagine gliding through narrow water lanes lined with tomato vines and vibrant flowers. The gardens breathe with the lake, they rise and fall with the tides. As you pass, the scent of fresh earth and green leaves envelopes you, a cooling, organic perfume that clears the mind of any lingering stress. Further into the lake, we reach the Monastery of the Jumping Cats, a grand wooden structure that feels like an island of ancient wisdom. Inside, the floors are polished dark teak, so smooth they feel like silk beneath your bare feet. The air is heavy with the scent of sandalwood and old paper. Buddhist monks in saffron robes move silently through the shadows, their presence adding to the profound sense of metta, loving-kindness, that permeates the air. You sit by a large, open window where the breeze carries the chime of 1,000 tiny bells hanging from the eaves of a nearby stupa. Tinkle, chime, tinkle. It is the sound of the wind made audible. As the sun begins to set, the Shan hills turn a deep, bruised purple, and the lake transforms into a sheet of liquid gold. The silver mist begins to roll back in, hugging the surface of the water and swallowing the base of the stilthouses so they appear to be floating in the clouds. You return to your teak sanctuary and sit on the veranda. The lanterns are lit, small, flickering flames inside colored glass, casting long, dancing reflections on the dark water. The world is retreating into itself. The fishermen have returned to their villages, and the only sound left is the rhythmic chorus of frogs and the soft sighing of the wind through the lakeside reeds. This is the history of a people who chose to live in harmony with the water rather than fight against it. Their lives are dictated by the pulse of the lake, a slow and steady heartbeat that rejects the frantic pace of the outside world. As you lie down on a bed draped in cool, hand-woven cotton, feel the gentle swaying of your house. It is almost imperceptible, a micro-rocking motion that acts as a natural cradle. You are safe, suspended between the stars above and the deep, silent waters below. The mist is now so thick it presses against your windows like a soft, white blanket. It muffs the world, creating a private universe of teak and shadow. The rhythm of the lake, the lap, lap, lap against the wood, is the last thing you hear. It is a promise that the water will always be there, steady and unchanging. Sink into the deep, silver peace of Inal, letting the floating gardens of your mind bloom into the quiet, starlit blossoms of sleep. Part 18, The Cedar Forests of Mount Koya. From the waters of Myanmar, we travel north to the sacred peaks of Japan, to the mountain monastery of Mount Koya, Koyasan. We are walking through Okanoin, the largest and most silent cemetery in Japan, where over 200,000 stone stupas rest beneath the canopy of thousand-year-old cedar trees. Imagine a world of deep greens and grays. The air is cold and carries the sharp, clean scent of cedar resin and damp moss. The trees are so tall they block out the sun, creating a perpetual emerald twilight. Every stone monument is covered in a thick, velvety layer of bright green moss, making the graveyard feel like a living part of the forest. The only sound is the crunch of your footsteps on the gravel path and the distant, rhythmic thump of a wooden temple drum. You are staying in a shakubo, a temple lodging. Your room is simple: tatami mat floors, sliding paper doors, shoji, and a single low table. The smell of the tatami is earthy and dry, like sun-warmed hay. In the evening, the monks serve shojin ryori, traditional Buddhist vegetarian cuisine. Every dish is a small work of art, served in lacquerware bowls that feel light and warm in your hands. The meal is eaten in absolute silence, allowing you to focus on the texture of the sesame tofu and the subtle sweetness of the mountain vegetables. At night, you walk back into the forest, guided by the soft glow of stone lanterns. The path leads to the Torodo, Hall of Lamps, where over 10,000 oil lamps have been kept burning for centuries. Some are said to have been lit by emperors nearly 1,000 years ago. The heat from the lamps creates a gentle, upward draft, and the flickering light turns the hall into a golden cavern of flickering stars. Sitting here, you feel the presence of the millions of prayers that have been offered in this space. The history of Mount Koya is one of shingen, the pursuit of the hidden truth through ritual and silence. As you return to your room and tuck yourself into a thick, warm futon, the mountain air grows even colder outside. But inside, you are cocooned in the scent of cedar and the warmth of the temple. The monks are beginning their evening chants in a nearby hall, a low, vibrating drone that feels like the mountain itself is humming you a lullaby. There is no anxiety here, no before or after. There is only the mountain, the trees, and the eternal flame. You are drifting now, the sound of the wind in the cedars blending with the rhythmic chanting of the monks. The moss is growing over the worries of your day, softening the edges of your thoughts until they disappear. You are resting in the heart of the sacred mountain, safe within a forest that has watched over the world for a millennium. Sleep is a deep, green valley, and you are falling slowly into its soft, mossy embrace. Imagine standing on a high limestone ridge overlooking a valley that seems to have turned into a sea of liquid violet. The air here is extraordinary. It is a heavy, floral perfume, thick with the scent of wild lavender, blooming thyme, and sun-baked rosemary. This is the scent of peace itself. As the sun begins to sink behind the distant Luberon Mountains, the heat of the day lifts, replaced by a soft, lavender-tinted breeze that feels like silk against your skin. The soundscape is a slow, rhythmic hum. The thousands of honeybees that worked the blossoms all day are retreating to their hives, their buzzing fading into a low, vibrating drone that blends with the distant, steady chirp-chirp of the evening crickets. You are walking along a path made of crushed white stone that glows in the fading light. Every step you take releases a fresh burst of fragrance from the herbs crushed beneath your sandals. This is a history of the gens, the families who lived in these stone farmhouses, moss, for generations, their lives dictated by the blooming of the flowers and the movement of the mistral wind. You approach a small, ancient distillery made of rough-hewn stone. Inside, the atmosphere is warm and humid. A copper alembic sits over a low fire of olive wood, slowly dripping the precious blue gold, the essential oil of the lavender, into a glass flask. The sound is a constant, hypnotic drip, drip, drip. The air inside is so saturated with the scent of lavender that it feels as though your very lungs are being bathed in serenity. Lavender was the cleaner of the ancient world. The Romans used it in their baths to wash away the dust of travel and the stress of the city. As you stand in the warm, fragrant steam, feel the day's weight evaporating into the rafters. As night falls, the purple fields turn into a deep, velvety black under a canopy of brilliant stars. You move to the terrace of a stone villa, where a table is set with a simple, earthen pitcher of cool water and a loaf of crusty bread. The silence here is vast and protective. In Provence, the night is not feared, it is welcomed as a time of restoration. You lie back on a wooden chaise, looking up at the Milky Way, which the locals call the St. James's Way. The scent of the lavender is even stronger now, carried upward by the cooling earth. It acts as a natural sedative, slowing your heart rate and smoothing the ripples of your mind. This is the history of the slow bloom. Unlike the frantic growth of the tropical jungles, the plants of Provence grow slowly, deeply rooted in the dry, rocky soil, drawing their strength from the sun and the silence. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the purple rose stretching out forever in the darkness, a soft, floral blanket covering the earth. The rhythm of the drip in the distillery and the hum of the crickets merge into a single, unified pulse of the earth. You are safe, surrounded by the scent of 1,000 years of summer. The stone walls of the villa are warm from the day's sun, radiating a gentle heat that cradles you. You are sinking into the purple dusk, your thoughts fading like the light on the horizon, until there is nothing left but the fragrance, the stars, and the deep, floral peace of the high plateau. From the purple fields of France, we travel south to the rugged, limestone cliffs of the Isle of Capri in the Bay of Naples. We are entering the Blue Grotto, the secret sea cave favored by the Emperor Tiberius, a place where the water itself seems to be made of light. Imagine being in a small wooden rowboat, drifting toward a tiny opening at the base of a towering white cliff. The boatman tells you to lie flat on the bottom of the boat as he pulls on a heavy iron chain, sliding the vessel through a narrow gap just inches above the water. For a moment, there is total darkness and the sound of the surging sea, and then, suddenly, you emerge into a cathedral of sapphire. The water beneath you is a brilliant, electric blue, glowing from an underwater opening that filters the sunlight through the deep Mediterranean. The cave walls are silvered with moisture, reflecting the blue light so that everything, the boat, your hands, the air itself, appears to be submerged in a luminous, azure dream. The soundscape is the rhythmic, echoing slosh of the water against the limestone walls, a deep, resonant sound that vibrates through the hull of the boat and into your body. This is a history of hidden luxury. 2,000 years ago, Roman emperors came here to escape the heat and the noise of Rome. They carved stone platforms into the cave walls where they could sit in the cool, blue silence and listen to the sea. Imagine yourself sitting on one of these ancient ledges, your feet dangling in the water. The temperature is a perfect, constant cool. The water is so clear you can see the white sand on the sea floor, 30 feet below, shimmering like scattered diamonds. As you rest in the sapphire chamber, the outside world feels like a distant, irrelevant memory. The blue light has a hypnotic quality, it stills the mind and stops the internal monologue. There is only the rhythm of the tide, inhale as the water rises, exhale as it recedes. You are in the heart of the island, protected by millions of tons of limestone, floating in a pool of liquid light. The boatman hums a low, wordless Neapolitan melody, his voice echoing softly off the cave roof, adding a human warmth to the ancient, watery silence. As the sun sets and the blue light fades into a deep, royal indigo, the grotto becomes a palace of shadows. You are rowed back out into the open sea, where the stars are just beginning to appear over the silhouette of Mount Vesuvius. The air is salty and fresh. You return to a villa perched high on the cliffs, where the sound of the waves below is a constant, distant lullaby. You lie down in a room with white linen curtains that flutter in the night breeze. The memory of the blue light stays behind your eyelids, a calming glow that guides you into the depths of sleep. You are floating once more, sinking into the indigo waters of the Mediterranean, safe, serene, and infinitely at peace. Imagine standing atop the terrace of a massive, weather-worn brick pagoda as the late afternoon sun begins its slow descent. The air is dry and warm, carrying the distinct, ancient scent of sun-baked clay, parched grass, and the faint, sweet trail of sandalwood incense drifting from a nearby shrine. Before you, as far as the eye can see, thousands of pointed temple spires, stupas, pierce the horizon, their silhouettes softening in a haze of golden dust kicked up by a distant ox cart. The soundscape of Bagan is a masterclass in tranquility. There is the low, rhythmic thrum of a distant bronze gong, a sound so deep it feels like it's vibrating through the soles of your feet. Between the gong strikes, the silence is filled by the delicate tinkle-tinkle of thousands of etched, the umbrella-shaped metal finials atop the pagodas, adorned with tiny bells that catch the evening breeze. It is a melodic, metallic shivering that reminds you that even the wind here is a form of prayer. You descend from the terrace and walk along a sandy path toward the Ananda Temple, the Westminster Abbey of the East. As you step through the thick, arched entrance, the temperature drops significantly. The interior is a labyrinth of cool, dark corridors lit only by narrow shafts of sunlight that pierce the high windows like solid beams of gold. The air smells of old stone and damp earth. In the center of the temple stand 4 colossal, gold-leafed Buddhas, 30 feet tall, their faces carved with an expression of such profound, unwavering peace that your own breathing instinctively slows to match the stillness of the room. Visualize yourself sitting on the cool, polished stone floor of a small, forgotten library nearby, the Pitaka Take. This was once a storehouse for sacred Buddhist scriptures written on palm leaves. The room is silent, shielded by 3-foot-thick walls. You watch the dust motes dancing in a sliver of light, moving in a slow, weightless ballet. There is no urgency here. The history of Bagan is the history of merit, the belief that every brick laid and every prayer whispered contributes to a great, eternal balance. You feel yourself becoming part of that balance, a single point of calm in a landscape that has endured for a millennium. As the sun finally touches the horizon, the entire plain is bathed in a deep, glowing orange, turning the red brick temples into pillars of fire. Then, as quickly as the light flared, it fades into a bruised purple twilight. You return to a quiet wooden lodge overlooking the Irrawaddy River. The water is a dark, moving mirror, flowing silently toward the sea. The evening air brings the scent of wood smoke from the village and the rhythmic, hollow clack-clack of a wooden loom from a nearby weaver's hut. This steady, domestic rhythm acts as a grounding pulse, pulling you further away from the complexities of the modern world. You lie down on a bed made of dark, fragrant wood, covered in cool, hand-loomed cotton. Through the open window, the etched bells continue their soft, irregular music. The darkness outside is absolute, save for the stars that look like spilled diamonds over the temple spires. You are safe, tucked away in a corner of history where the only task is to exist. The rhythm of the river, the song of the bells, and the cooling of the ancient bricks all work together to create a cocoon of absolute serenity. You are sinking now, drifting over the plains of Bagan, weightless and free. The thousands of temples stand guard over your sleep, their golden peaks reflecting the starlight, their silent halls holding the peace of ages. You are merging with the golden silence, falling into a sleep as deep and enduring as the stones of the great pagodas. Imagine walking through a forest of slender marble columns that look like palm trees turned to stone. The air is cool and fragrant with the scent of blooming orange trees, night-flowering jasmine, and the damp, clean smell of running water. The Alhambra was designed to be a paradise on earth, and at night, with the moon reflecting off the white marble floors, it feels exactly like that. The soundscape is dominated by water. The Moors were masters of the song of the water. They designed the fountains, channels, and pools to create different acoustic effects. In this courtyard, 12 marble lions support a central basin, and the water spills from their mouths with a rhythmic, bubbling gurgle that masks all other noise. It is a constant, white noise lullaby that cleanses the mind of thought. As you walk, the sound follows you, changing in pitch as you move through the arched galleries. You enter the Hall of the Two Sisters, where the ceiling is a Mokarna's dome, thousands of tiny, honeycomb-like cells carved into the plaster. In the moonlight, it looks like a celestial cave or a frozen waterfall of stars. There are no straight lines here, everything is a curve, a pattern, or a reflection. This architecture was intended to reflect the complexity and beauty of the divine. As you look up at the dome, your eyes trace the intricate geometric patterns, a visual meditation that stills the internal chatter of the brain. The history of the Alhambra is the history of Zud, detachment from the world. The kings who lived here knew that their power was temporary, so they built a sanctuary of beauty that would last forever. You sit on a marble bench overlooking the Generalife Gardens. Below you, the city of Granada sleeps in a haze of orange lamplight, but up here, there is only the moon and the water. The scent of the roses is heavy and sweet, a natural narcotic that lulls you into a state of profound relaxation. As you prepare to sleep in a room overlooking the Darro Valley, the sound of the fountains becomes a distant, rhythmic hum. The thick stone walls of the fortress protect you from the world, and the intricate carvings on the walls seem to move softly in the shadows, like a silent story being told in stone. You are safe in the heart of the palace, held in the arms of a civilization that valued beauty above all else. You are drifting now, the sound of the water turning into a soft, steady pulse in your ears. The marble columns, the jasmine-scented air, and the moonlit pools are all fading into a soft, blue blur. You are sinking into the cool, geometric peace of the Alhambra, falling into a sleep that is as refined and beautiful as a Nasrid poem. Imagine waking in a house made of light, weather-beaten cedar, built upon a massive raft of buoyant Asaku logs. The house doesn't sit on the ground, it floats on the rising tea-colored waters of the Rio Negro. The air is thick, warm, and incredibly alive. It smells of crushed leaves, damp earth, wild orchids, and the clean, ozone scent of a recently passed tropical rain. Everything here is green, 1,000 shades of jade, emerald, and moss reflecting off the glassy surface of the water. The soundscape of the Amazon is a rhythmic, symphonic masterpiece. It begins with the constant, low-frequency hum of the forest, a vibration of life so steady it becomes a form of silence. You hear the rhythmic plip-plop of heavy raindrops falling from giant bromeliads into the river. From the canopy high above, the liquid, flute-like call of the Orapendula bird ripples through the air. As you sit on the edge of your floating porch, dangling your feet near the water, you hear the rhythmic poof, poof, of a pink river dolphin breaking the surface to breathe. Its movement is slow and deliberate, a reminder that in this world, there is no need to hurry. You step into a small wooden canoe, a montaria, and paddle silently into the Igarape, the narrow water paths that lead into the heart of the flooded forest. Here, the giant trees grow straight out of the water, their massive buttress roots acting like cathedral pillars. The sunlight filters through the dense canopy in shimmering shafts of emerald light. You glide over giant Victoria Amazonica water lilies, their pads as large as tea tables, their white blossoms smelling of sweet pineapple. The rhythm of your paddle, dip, swirl, lift, is the only human sound in this prehistoric world. You are traveling through a landscape that hasn't changed in 10 million years. This is the history of Varzea, the seasonal rhythm of the flood. The people here do not resist the river, they rise and fall with it. When the waters come, they move their lives upward. When the waters recede, they plant in the rich silt. There is a profound sense of surrender in this lifestyle, a trust in the cycles of the earth. You find a quiet spot where the vines hang like thick velvet ropes from the ceiling of the forest. You tie your canoe to a branch and lie back. The canopy above moves in a slow, hypnotic sway, a green kaleidoscope against the blue sky. The humidity acts like a warm, soft weight, pressing you into a state of deep, physical relaxation. As twilight approaches, the forest changes its tune. The bright birds fall silent, and the concert of the night begins. The rhythmic creak-creak of tree frogs and the steady, vibrating drone of cicadas create a wall of sound that mutes all thought. The air cools slightly, and the scent of night-blooming jasmine begins to drift from the shadows. You return to your floating home as the first fireflies appear, looking like wandering stars caught in the undergrowth. The river is now a dark, liquid mirror, reflecting the vastness of the Southern Cross overhead. You lie down in a hand-woven cotton hammock, the most perfect bed ever designed for the tropics. The hammock gently rocks with the subtle movement of the house on the water. Sway, pause, sway. It is the rhythm of the river's heartbeat. The thick wooden logs beneath you groan softly, a comforting, structural sound that tells you are supported. The forest is breathing all around you, a giant, green lung that purifies your spirit with every breath you take. You are drifting now, sinking into the deep, humid peace of the Amazon. The boundaries of your body seem to soften, merging with the warmth of the air and the rhythmic pulse of the jungle. The fireflies, the frogs, and the flowing river are all part of a single, eternal song. You are safe in the heart of the wild, floating on a sea of green dreams, falling into a sleep as deep and revitalizing as the great river itself. From the heat of the Amazon, we fly to the cool, ethereal shores of the Curonian Spit in the Baltic Sea. We are entering the dancing forest, where the pine trees grow in strange, twisting spirals, and the sand dunes move like slow-motion waves. Imagine walking across a landscape of pure, white sand that looks like snow but feels warm beneath your feet. The air is sharp and salty, smelling of pine needles, sea buckthorn, and the cold, clean Baltic wind. The trees here are crooked and bent into impossible shapes, circles, hearts, and zigzags, as if they were caught mid-dance by a sudden frost. The soundscape is one of whispering sands, the dry, rhythmic hiss of the wind blowing sand across the dunes, and the hollow, fluting whistle of the wind through the twisted pine branches. You find a small wooden cottage tucked into a hollow between two dunes. Inside, the walls are made of weathered driftwood, and a small fire of pine cones flickers in the hearth, smelling of sweet smoke and resin. This is the history of the sandwalkers, the people who lived on this shifting land, moving their houses every few decades as the dunes slowly marched across the peninsula. There is a lesson here in impermanence, the beauty of things that do not last. You sit by the window, watching the moonlight turn the white sand into a landscape of silver silk. The night is silent and cold, but inside, you are wrapped in a blanket of heavy sheep's wool. The rhythm of the Baltic waves hitting the shore is a distant, muffled boom, thump, sigh, thump. It is a primeval sound, the sound of the world's edge. You are safe in your driftwood sanctuary, hidden between the forest and the sea. The twisted trees outside stand like silent guardians, their strange shapes a testament to the power of the wind and the endurance of life. You are drifting now, the image of the dancing trees and the silver dunes blending into a soft, monochromatic blur. The rhythmic hiss of the sand is lulling you into a state of weightless peace. You are like a grain of sand, carried by the wind into a place of absolute stillness. You are resting on the shifting edge of the world, where the forest meets the sea, falling into a sleep that is as deep and mysterious as the Baltic depths. Imagine stepping out of the darkness into a structure that glows from within like a massive, fallen diamond. This is a palace made entirely of ice and snice, a mixture of snow and ice that is as strong as granite but as soft to the eye as clouds. The air here is the purest you will ever breathe, it is sharp, dry, and perfectly still, kept at a constant temperature of -5 degrees Celsius, regardless of the howling blizzards outside. As you enter the main hall, you are greeted by a forest of ice pillars, each one hand-carved to be crystal clear, reflecting the soft, ethereal blue light that seems to emanate from the walls themselves. The soundscape of the Arctic is the sound of absolute silence. Outside, the wind may moan across the tundra, but inside these thick walls of ice, the world is perfectly muffled. Every footstep on the reindeer skin rugs is silent. The only sound is the rhythmic, crystalline tink of your own breath turning to tiny ice crystals in the air. This is the history of the Great Freeze, a world where time is suspended, and nature is stilled into a state of frozen perfection. You walk through corridors where the walls are etched with intricate carvings of reindeer, snowflakes, and ancient Norse runes, all shimmering in the dim light. You reach your sleeping chamber, a private grotto carved into a solid block of ice. The bed is a massive slab of translucent ice, but it is topped with thick wooden slats and several layers of insulating reindeer hides. You are given a heavy, thermal sleeping bag designed for polar expeditions. As you climb in, the contrast between the freezing air and the intense warmth of the furs creates a sensation of perfect cocooning. Your face feels the crisp, cold kiss of the Arctic, while your body is wrapped in a furnace of natural heat. Suddenly, the roof of the ice palace, built with thin, translucent panels, begins to glow. The aurora borealis has arrived. You watch from your bed as ribbons of emerald green, violet, and crimson dance across the sky. They move in a slow, undulating rhythm, like curtains of light being blown by a cosmic wind. The Sami people believed these were the spirits of their ancestors dancing in the heavens. There is no sound to the lights, but they have a visual rhythm that is deeply hypnotic. You watch the green fire swirl and pulse, a silent symphony of solar wind and magnetic fields. In this frozen sanctuary, the worries of the world are literally frozen out. The cold acts as a preservative, not just for the ice, but for your mind. Everything is simplified. There is only the cold, the heat, and the light. The rhythm of your breathing becomes the primary clock of the world. Inhale the frost, exhale the warmth. You are in a temple of purity, a place where the earth is at its most quiet and its most majestic. As you drift toward sleep, the aurora continues its silent dance above you. The ice walls hold the blue light of the Arctic night, glowing softly like a nightlight from the stars. You are safe in your warm cocoon, protected by the frozen heart of the river. The silence of the north is not a void, it is a presence, a heavy, comforting blanket of peace that settles over your spirit. You are sinking into the crystal depths of the Arctic, falling into a sleep as deep and undisturbed as a glacier, where the only movement is the slow, rhythmic pulse of the dancing lights. From the frozen north, we travel to the high altiplano of Bolivia, to the Sala de Uyuni, the world's largest salt flat. We are staying in a hotel where everything, the walls, the tables, the chairs, and the beds, is made of pure, white salt blocks cut from the earth. Imagine standing in a landscape so flat and so white it looks like a frozen ocean under a sky of brilliant indigo. After a light rain, the salt crust turns into a perfect mirror, reflecting the sky so perfectly that the horizon disappears. You feel as though you are walking on clouds. The air is thin, cool, and smells of ancient minerals and sun-dried salt. The soundscape is the rhythmic crunch, crunch of your boots on the salt crystals, a dry, satisfying sound that echoes in the vast emptiness. Inside the salt hotel, the walls have a unique, crystalline texture that sparkles in the lamplight. Salt is a natural purifier and insulator. It creates an atmosphere that is incredibly dry and grounded. You sit at a salt table, drinking a warm infusion of coca leaves, feeling the absolute stillness of the high desert. This is a world made of one single element, a masterpiece of minimalism. As you lie down on your salt bed, covered in heavy, colorful Andean wool blankets, you look through the window. Because there is no humidity and no light pollution, the stars here do not twinkle, they glow like steady, white fires. You can see the rings of Saturn and the dust clouds of the Milky Way with the naked eye. The silence of the Sala is profound. It is a prehistoric silence, the silence of a dried-up ancient sea. You are resting on the mineral remains of a world that existed millions of years ago, held in the dry, salt-cured embrace of the earth. You are drifting now, the whiteness of the salt and the brilliance of the stars merging into a single, peaceful vibration. You are grounded, stable, and perfectly still. The vast, mirrored horizon of the Sala carries you away into a dream where you are weightless, floating between two skies. You are sinking into the white peace of the Andes, falling into a sleep that is as clear and eternal as a salt crystal. Imagine waking up on a traditional wooden riverboat, a sampan, as it drifts slowly through the pre-dawn mist. The air is warm and heavy, carrying the intoxicating scent of wet earth, blooming jasmine, and the savory, woodsy aroma of charcoal fires starting up along the banks. The sky is a pale, pearlescent gray, and the river, the mother of waters, is a smooth, coffee-colored silk that reflects the first hints of pink on the horizon. The soundscape of the Mekong is a rhythmic, aquatic symphony. It begins with the low, steady thump-thump-thump of a long-tail boat engine in the distance, a sound that serves as the heartbeat of the delta. Closer to you, you hear the rhythmic swish of a hand oar and the soft, musical clink of ceramic bowls as a floating noodle vendor prepares for the morning. There is the occasional splash of a fish jumping and the distant, melodic call of a rooster echoing across the rice paddies. It is a busy world, yet it moves with a languid, tidal grace that rejects the idea of hurry. As the sun rises, you enter the floating market of Kai Rang. This is not a place of concrete and stalls, but a shifting mosaic of hundreds of boats. Each boat has a tall bamboo pole, a KBO, with a sample of its goods tied to the top, a bright orange pumpkin, a cluster of green bananas, or a red pineapple. Imagine the vibrant colors, the neon pink of dragon fruit, the deep purple of mangosteens, and the bright green of limes, all glowing against the brown water. You pull up alongside a coffee boat, and the vendor hands you a glass of thick, iced coffee with sweetened condensed milk. The contrast of the bitter bean and the velvety sugar is a sensory anchor, grounding you in the morning. We leave the bustle of the market and paddle into a narrow arroyo, a side canal shaded by a dense canopy of waterpaws, water coconut palms. Here, the sunlight filters through the fronds in flickering, emerald patterns. The roots of the palms dip into the water like giant, wooden fingers. The history of the Mekong is the history of Phu Sa, the life-giving silt. The river brings the soil of the Himalayas down to the sea, and the people here live in a state of constant gratitude for this abundance. You find a small garden house made of red brick and coconut timber, where a hammock is strung between two mango trees. You lie in the hammock, listening to the rhythmic thwack of a machete opening a fresh coconut and the soft, repetitive song of the cuckoo bird. The humidity acts as a warm, comforting weight, pressing your body into the mesh of the hammock. There is no dust here, only moisture and growth. You feel as though you are part of the vegetation, your own life force slowing down to match the slow, steady rise of the sap in the trees. The river is just a few feet away, its constant flow a reminder that everything in life is in transition, yet everything is exactly where it needs to be. As the sun sets, the delta turns into a world of liquid fire. The orange light reflects off the emerald rice fields, and the water becomes a path of hammered copper. You return to your boat as the floating lamps are lit, small candles inside paper lotuses, set adrift on the river to honor the ancestors. The darkness brings a coolness that smells of damp moss and wood smoke. The rhythmic thump of the engines has faded, replaced by the chorus of river frogs and the soft, lapping sound of the water against the hull of your boat. Slap, gurgle, oh slap. You are drifting now, the sampan swaying almost imperceptibly with the current. You are tucked into a bed of cool linen, protected by a fine mosquito net that looks like a cloud of white mist. The river is carrying you, as it has carried millions of travelers for thousands of years. You don't need to steer, the current knows the way. You are sinking into the warm, silty peace of the Mekong, falling into a sleep as deep and continuous as the river itself, moving slowly toward the great, quiet ocean of dreams. Imagine stepping through a heavy wooden gate into the courtyard of Ryuan. Before you lies a rectangular space of white gravel, meticulously raked into perfect, concentric circles around 15 mysterious volcanic rocks. There are no flowers here, no towering trees, only the stone and the sand. The air is crisp and carries the scent of damp earth, aged cedar, and the faint, clean aroma of green tea being whisked in a nearby pavilion. The soundscape is a masterclass in minimalism. It begins with the rhythmic, dry shuk-shuk of a monk's bamboo rake as he creates the morning's patterns in the gravel. This is the sound of Karasansui, the dry landscape. Every few minutes, a shurshurodoshi, a bamboo water fountain, fills with water, tips over with a hollow clack against a stone, and resets. The sound punctuates the silence, making the stillness that follows feel even deeper. Drip, drip, clack. It is a rhythmic reminder of the passing moment, urging you to let go of the past and the future. You take a seat on the weathered wooden veranda, the engawa. The wood is smooth and cool beneath you, polished by centuries of sitting monks. The history of Kyoto is the history of Ma, the beauty of empty space. The monks believed that by looking at this empty garden, the mind could become like the white sand, vast, calm, and open. As you gaze at the rocks, which seem to float like islands in a sea of clouds, your eyes stop searching for meaning and start resting in the form. The sunlight filters through a single maple tree, casting long, delicate shadows that move in a slow-motion dance across the white sand. We move further into the temple grounds to the moss garden of Seihoji. Here, the ground is covered in over 120 varieties of thick, emerald green moss. It feels like walking through a dream of velvet. The air is cooler here, smelling of deep forest and ancient stones. Imagine a sudden, light spring rain beginning to fall. The sound is a soft, rhythmic hiss as the droplets are absorbed by the moss. The rain turns the green into a color so vivid it feels electric. You sit in a small tea hut, the chishitsu, watching the rain turn the stone lanterns into dark, glistening statues. Inside the tea hut, the ritual of shinoyu begins. The only sounds are the rhythmic bubbling of the water in the iron kettle, which the Japanese say sounds like wind in the pines, and the soft clink of the bamboo ladle. You are handed a bowl of frothy matcha. The warmth of the ceramic bowl in your hands and the bitter, earthy taste of the tea ground you in the present. This is the history of wabi-sabi, finding perfection in the imperfect and the transient. As you sip the tea, you realize that this moment, with the rain and the moss, will never happen exactly like this again. There is a profound peace in that acceptance. As evening falls, the temple bells begin to ring across the city. The sound of a Japanese temple bell, the bansho, is not a sharp tolling, but a deep, low-frequency hum that vibrates through the air for a long time before fading away. It is the sound of the universe exhaling. You return to your room, where the sliding paper doors are open to a small, private inner garden. The scent of the rain-washed stone and the damp pine needles drifts in, a natural incense that stills the spirit. You lie down on a firm tatami mat, covered in a silk quilt that feels as light as a petal. The darkness is soft and fragrant. The only sound remaining is the rhythmic drip of the rain from the eaves into a stone basin. Drip, pause, drip. You are safe in the heart of the ancient capital, protected by the wisdom of the stones and the silence of the moss. You are sinking into the white sand of the Zen garden, your thoughts becoming as still and as beautiful as the rocks. You are falling into a sleep that is as clear and deep as a mountain spring, drifting away into the eternal Ma. Imagine arriving at the water's edge just as the sun begins to set, turning the sky into a tapestry of crushed carnations and liquid gold. You step into a royal barge, its wooden hull painted with delicate lotus motifs. The air is warm and carries the heady, sweet fragrance of crushed rose petals, sun-dried marigolds, and the cooling scent of the lake water. Before you, the lake palace, Jag Niwas, rises from the center of the water, a vision of pure white marble, its balconies and cupolas glowing with an ethereal, pearlescent light. The soundscape of Udaipur is a rhythmic, regal lullaby. It begins with the soft, melodic slap-slap of the water against the marble embankments, a sound that has pulsed through the city since the 16th century. From the distant city palace, you hear the faint, haunting notes of a sarangi, a stringed instrument that sounds like a human voice singing a song of ancient longing. The rhythm is slow and undulating, matching the gentle sway of your boat as it glides toward the island sanctuary. You step onto the marble landing of the palace, where the floor is cool and smooth beneath your feet. The interior is a labyrinth of open courtyards, lily ponds, and rooms adorned with intricate glass mosaics and pietra dura inlay. Imagine sitting in a giroca, a carved stone balcony hanging directly over the water. The breeze from the lake is filtered through a screen of koos, vetiver, grass, turning the hot Rajasthani air into a cool, earthy mist. The history of Udaipur is the history of the Muir, a dynasty that valued the cooling power of water above all else in the desert. At the center of the palace is a hidden courtyard garden. Here, fountains shaped like peacocks spray fine mists of rosewater into the air. The sound is a constant, rhythmic hiss and gurgle, a private rainstorm that keeps the temperature perfectly balanced. You watch the resident peacocks as they retreat to the shadows of the frangipani trees, their long iridescent tails shimmering in the twilight. The scent of the night-blooming jasmine begins to rise, its heavy perfume acting as a natural balm for the spirit. There is a sense of absolute protection here, an island fortress of beauty, isolated from the dust and noise of the world. As night falls, the city palace on the shore is lit by thousands of tiny electric lamps, their reflections stretching across the lake like ribbons of silver fire. You return to your chamber, where the bed is draped in the finest mulmul, muslin, cotton, so light it feels like a breeze against your skin. The walls are painted with scenes of royal processions in colors made from crushed gemstones. The only sound remaining is the rhythmic lapping of the lake against the foundation of your room, lap, pulse, lap. You are drifting now, the white marble walls of the palace acting as a shield against the passage of time. You are floating in a city of sunrise, cradled by the waters of Picola. The scent of the rosewater and the distant, fading notes of the sarangi are weaving a tapestry of peace around you. You are sinking into the cool, marble heart of the lake, falling into a sleep as deep and royal as the history of the Rajput kings. From the warmth of India, we fly north to the vast, quiet wilderness of the Siberian taiga. We are entering a forest of silver birch, where the trees stand like tall, white ghosts in the perpetual twilight of the northern summer. Imagine walking on a carpet of soft, green moss and fallen leaves. The air is sharp and incredibly fresh, smelling of pine sap, damp bark, and the crisp, ozone scent of a nearby mountain stream. The birch trees are so white they seem to glow from within, their paper-like bark peeling in thin, silver curls. The soundscape is the rhythmic shushu of the wind through the delicate, heart-shaped leaves and the distant, hollow thud of a woodpecker working on a larch tree. You find a small isba, a traditional log cabin made of heavy pine timber. Inside, a large brick stove, pechka, radiates a deep, bone-warming heat that smells of wood smoke and baking rye bread. This is the history of the taiga dwellers, people who found abundance in the most silent places on earth. You sit by the small window, watching the white nights. The sun never truly sets here, leaving the world in a state of eternal, silver dawn. The silence is immense, a geographic presence that fills every corner of the forest. As you prepare to sleep, the fire in the stove crackles softly, a rhythmic, domestic heartbeat. You are wrapped in a heavy quilt made of down feathers, feeling the absolute security of the timber walls. Outside, the birch trees stand in silent rows, a silver army guarding the peace of the woods. You are drifting now, the whiteness of the trees and the warmth of the stove merging into a single, peaceful vibration. You are sinking into the silver forest, falling into a sleep as deep and quiet as the Siberian winter. Imagine walking across a bridge draped in thousands of colorful prayer flags. Below you, a glacial river roars with a deep, rhythmic thunder, but as you climb the final stone steps into the monastery, that sound fades into a soft, distant hum. The air here is thin, cold, and carries the intoxicating scent of blue pines, mountain minerals, and the spicy, earthy aroma of burning juniper. You are at an altitude where the clouds drift through the hallways, making it feel as though the entire stone structure is floating in a sea of white mist. The soundscape of this sanctuary is a slow, meditative pulse. It is defined by the great prayer wheels, massive copper cylinders, 8 feet tall, filled with millions of written prayers. As the monks pass, they give the wheels a gentle push. You hear the rhythmic clackwhir of the internal bells striking as the wheels spin. This sound is believed to release the prayers into the wind, carrying them across the world. It is a steady, mechanical heartbeat that anchors the silence of the mountain. You are invited into the Great Archive, a room that has remained unchanged for 700 years. The walls are lined from floor to ceiling with thousands of pigeonholes, each containing a sacred text wrapped in vibrant yellow and red silk. The air here is heavy and sweet, smelling of aged handmade paper, sandalwood oil, and the beeswax used to polish the wooden floors. You sit on a thick wool rug, and a young monk brings you a cup of suja, traditional butter tea. The tea is warm, salty, and rich, its steam rising in the cold air like a tiny ghost. This is the history of Dzong architecture, buildings designed to be both fortresses and temples. In this library, the monks preserve the terma, or hidden treasures of wisdom. As you watch a scholar monk slowly unwrap a long, narrow manuscript, the sound of the silk rustling is like a soft sigh. The rhythm of life here is dictated by the sun and the stars. There are no clocks, only the slow turning of the prayer wheels and the changing light on the snow peaks. You feel a profound sense of drukpa, peace, the realization that you are protected by the mountains and the centuries of devotion held within these walls. As the sun sets, the tiger's nest across the valley begins to glow with a golden light. The monks begin their evening debate in the courtyard below, their rhythmic hand-clapping, a sharp crack of palm against palm, acting as a sonic punctuation to their philosophical arguments. But inside the library, the silence remains absolute. You are given a small room with a window that looks out onto the void. The stars here are so bright and close they look like hanging lanterns. The Milky Way stretches across the black sky like a path of silver dust. You lie down on a bed of heavy yak wool blankets. The wool is coarse but incredibly warm, smelling of the high pastures. The only sound remaining is the rhythmic, distant clackwhir of a single prayer wheel being turned by the mountain wind. You are safe, tucked into a pocket of the sky, far above the worries of the world. The thin air slows your heart, and the scent of the juniper lulls your mind into a state of weightless tranquility. You are drifting now, floating with the monks in their cloud fortress. Your thoughts are like the prayer flags, colorful, fluttering, and then slowly fading into the white mist. You are sinking into the deep, indigo silence of the Himalayas, falling into a sleep as vast and eternal as the mountains themselves. From the heights of Bhutan, we descend to the warm, ancient cradle of the Mediterranean, to the island of Crete. We are entering an olive grove that has stood since the time of the Minoan kings, 3,000 years ago. Imagine standing beneath a tree with a trunk so wide and twisted it looks like a sculpture of braided silver. The air is warm and dry, smelling of wild thyme, sage, and the rich, fruity aroma of ripening olives. The sun filters through the silver-green leaves, creating a shimmering, rhythmic pattern of light and shadow on the red earth below. The soundscape is the steady, vibrating drone of the cicadas, a sound that defines the Mediterranean summer, and the distant, rhythmic clink-clink of goat bells from the rocky hillsides. This is the history of the eternal tree. The olive tree does not die, it simply renews itself, growing new shoots from an ancient heart. You find a small stone hut, a mitado, built from dry-laid limestone. Inside, it is cool and dark, smelling of stored olive oil and dried herbs hanging from the rafters. You sit on a wooden bench, eating a piece of barley rusk soaked in golden oil. The rhythm of life here is the rhythm of the harvest and the seasons. It is a slow, grounded existence that honors the earth and the sun. As the evening breeze, the melt-emi, begins to blow across the Aegean Sea, the silver leaves of the olive trees turn over, flashing like coins in the twilight. You lie down on a bed of dried seagrass, feeling the ancient stability of the island beneath you. The sound of the sea is a distant, rhythmic pulse, a constant reminder of the infinite. You are safe, held in the embrace of a tree that has seen empires rise and fall while remaining perfectly still. You are drifting now, the scent of time and the silver light of the moon merging into a soft, warm blur. You are sinking into the red earth of Crete, your thoughts becoming as slow and steady as the growth of an olive branch. You are falling into a sleep that is as rich and golden as the oil of the sun, resting in the cradle of the ancient world. Imagine stepping into a small, flat-bottomed boat on a river that flows deep beneath the limestone hills. As the boatman pushes off, the light of the upper world vanishes. The air here is cool, damp, and incredibly still. It smells of wet stone, fresh spring water, and the clean, earthy scent of moss. You are entering the cathedral cave, a massive underground chamber with acoustics so perfect that the silence feels like a physical presence. The soundscape is a rhythmic, watery heartbeat. You hear the slow, melodic plink, plunk, drip of water falling from ancient stalactites into the dark pools below. Each drop creates a ripple that travels outward in perfect circles, visible only when it catches a stray spark of light. There is the soft slosh of the water against the limestone walls and the muffled, rhythmic breathing of the cave itself. This is the history of stalagma, the slow, patient work of water carving through stone over millions of years. As you glide deeper into the glowworm grotto, the boatman puts down his pole. You look up, and the breath catches in your throat. Above you, the ceiling of the cave is covered in thousands upon thousands of tiny, bioluminescent stars. These are the Arachnicampa luminosa, unique to New Zealand. They radiate a soft, electric blue light that reflects off the mirror-still water, making it feel as though you are floating in the center of a vast, azure nebula. This is a living light, a rhythmic pulse of nature that exists in the total absence of the sun. Visualize the tiny, silk-like threads hanging down from the glowworms, glowing like strands of fiber-optic pearls. The light is steady and calming, a cool blue that soothes the nervous system. The history of this place is held by the Maori people, who call these caves a gateway to another realm. In this darkness, your eyes begin to see the invisible, the subtle shapes of the limestone, the flow of the water, and the interconnectedness of all living things. There is no noise here to distract you, no light to blind you. There is only the blue glow and the steady, ancient rhythm of the dripping water. You find a dry limestone ledge covered in a soft, thick mat of ferns. You lie back, looking directly up at the subterranean Milky Way. The cave is a natural womb, a place of absolute safety and profound quiet. The humidity is like a soft, damp cloth on your brow, easing away the tension of the day. You are far beneath the storms, the traffic, and the clocks of the world. Time here is measured in the growth of a stalagmite, 1 inch every 100 years. As you drift toward sleep, the blue lights above seem to pulse slowly, in time with your own heartbeat. The rhythmic drip, drip of the water becomes a distant, fading percussion. You are sinking into the cool, limestone heart of the earth, wrapped in a blanket of living starlight. You are weightless, floating on a river of silence, moving slowly into a dream that is as vast and luminous as the blue grotto. From the deep caves of the south, we travel to the mist-shrouded Qingqing Mountains of China, the birthplace of Taoism. We are entering an ancient wooden teahouse built onto the side of a mossy cliff, surrounded by a forest of giant bamboo. Imagine the sound of the wind moving through the bamboo, a rhythmic, wooden clack-clack and a soft, rushing sigh. The air is cold and wet, smelling of rain-soaked pine and the toasted, nutty aroma of oolong tea. Inside the tea house, the floorboards are made of dark, weathered cypress that creaks rhythmically as you walk. You sit at a heavy rootwood table, watching the fog roll in through the open windows, swallowing the valley in a sea of white. This is the history of Wu Wei, the art of effortless action. The tea master moves with a slow, liquid grace, pouring the water from a long-necked iron kettle. The sound is a steady, musical stream, shhhhhhh. The steam rises and mingles with the mountain mist. You hold the small, warm cup in both hands, feeling the heat seep into your palms. Every sip is a meditation. The rhythm of the tea house is the rhythm of the clouds, appearing, changing, and disappearing without a trace. As night falls, the monks in the nearby temple begin to strike a large wooden fish, the muyu. The rhythmic talk, talk, talk echoes through the bamboo forest, a steady pulse that clears the mind of cluttered thoughts. You lie down on a simple bed of woven straw and silk, listening to the rain begin to fall on the tiled roof. The rhythm of the rain on the clay tiles is the ultimate lullaby. You are safe in the clouds, protected by the mountains and the ancient wisdom of the tea. You are drifting now, the scent of the oolong and the sound of the bamboo merging into a single, peaceful vibration. You are sinking into the mist of the Qingqing Mountains, your spirit becoming as light and as formless as the fog. You are falling into a sleep that is as deep and harmonious as the Tao, resting in the high, quiet heart of the world. The final voyage, from the edge of the world to the heart of silence. We begin our final descent by leaving the canals of Amsterdam and drifting toward the high highlands of Scotland, where the mist clings to the ancient ruins of Eilean Donan. Imagine walking through a glen where the air is heavy with the scent of damp heather and peat smoke, the silence broken only by the distant, rhythmic lowing of highland cattle. As you move through this fog, the world blurs and shifts, taking you south to the Amalfi coast of Italy at midnight. Here, you sit on a lemon-scented terrace high above the Tyrrhenian Sea, listening to the rhythmic pulse of the Mediterranean waves far below, their salt spray cooling the warm stone beneath your feet. The scent of citrus and sea salt acts as a bridge, carrying your spirit across the ocean to the giant bamboo forests of Arashiyama in Japan. You walk through the towering green stalks that sway and creak in the wind like the masts of ancient ships, a rhythmic clack-clack that vibrates in the air. The forest is a cathedral of green light, and as you reach its heart, the bamboo transforms into the massive, ancient baobab trees of Madagascar. You lie beneath a tree so wide it feels like a mountain of wood, looking up through the branches at a sky so crowded with stars that there is no room for darkness. The air smells of dry earth and sun-warmed bark, a grounded, ancestral scent that makes you feel profoundly safe. From the roots of the baobab, your dream drifts to the crystal ice caves of Skaftafell, where the walls are a deep, transparent electric blue, holding the silence of 10,000 years. The only sound is the rhythmic, internal groan of the glacier as it moves an inch a century, a pace that makes your human worries feel small and fleeting. The cold brilliance of the ice then softens into the pink salt lakes of Australia at sunset. You are floating on water so buoyant and still it feels like a solid sheet of silk, the air smelling of wild eucalyptus and warm minerals. The horizon disappears as the pink water meets the pink sky, and you are weightless, drifting until you reach the ancient cedar groves of Lebanon. Here, the trees are the elders of the earth, their scent deep, resinous, and holy. You rest against a trunk that has stood since the time of the Phoenicians, feeling the slow, steady heartbeat of the tree merging with your own. The world is becoming quieter now, the edges of reality softening as you find yourself in the blue city of Jodhpur one last time, but now it is the hour before dawn. The blue walls are cool and shadowed, and the only sound is the rhythmic, distant chant of a morning prayer, a low drone that carries you across the desert to the white cliffs of Dover. You stand on the edge of the limestone, the white chalk glowing like a moon in the dark, the rhythmic boom of the English Channel below acting as a final, steady drumbeat for your journey. Finally, we arrive at the ultimate destination, the great void of the high Atacama. Here, there are no trees, no water, no cities, only the vast, silent plateau and the infinite stars. The air is so still that the silence has a sound of its own, a high, thin hum of the universe. You are lying on a bed of soft, cool sand that has held the heat of the sun and is now releasing it slowly into the night. You look up at the center of the galaxy, a swirling river of silver and gold, and you realize that your journey is complete. Every place we have visited, the jungles, the palaces, the oceans, and the mountains, are all contained within you. The scent of the sandalwood, the rhythm of the waves, the glow of the lamps, and the silence of the snow are now your own internal landscape. The story has reached its end, not because the world has stopped, but because you have found the center of the circle. The world is receding, the voices are fading, and there is only the breath. You are safe. You are home. You are the silence. The journey is over, and the dream begins. Sleep now, for the stars are watching, and the earth is still. The final horizon, the great return to stillness. The many paths we have walked together, from the snow-capped Himalayas to the sun-drenched groves of Crete, are now converging into a single point of absolute peace. Every scent of sandalwood, every rhythmic wave of the ocean, and every flickering temple lamp is fading into a soft, golden glow. You are no longer a traveler, you have become the destination. The world outside is receding, becoming a distant memory, as the vast landscapes we explored settle into the quiet corners of your heart. Like a river finally reaching the deep, still ocean, your journey is merging with the infinite. Imagine yourself standing on a high, grassy plateau at the very edge of the world. The air is perfectly still, smelling only of the cool, night sky and the faint, sweet memory of wild grass. Above you, the stars are not distant, they are a heavy, protective blanket of light, wrapping around you in a silent embrace. The earth beneath your feet is solid and warm, holding you with a mother's care. There is no next, no before, and no after. There is only this breath, this heartbeat, and this profound sense of belonging. The stories have done their work, they have guided you through the gates of the world and brought you safely to the sanctuary of your own spirit. As the last echoes of the distant temple bells and the soft lapping of the tides fade away, a new kind of silence begins to rise, a warm, velvet silence that feels like a familiar home. You can feel your body becoming light, almost weightless, as if you are floating on a cloud of pure starlight. Every muscle is loose, every thought is a soft blur, and every worry has evaporated into the cool night air. You are safe. You are protected. You are deeply, infinitely loved by the silence that surrounds you. The light is dimming now, the colors are softening into a deep, restful indigo. The journey has reached its natural end, and the door to a long, restorative sleep is standing wide open. You don't need to listen anymore, you don't need to follow. Simply let go. Let the rhythm of your breathing be your only guide. As the music begins to rise like a gentle tide, let it carry you across the final threshold. The world is at rest, the stars are on guard, and you are free to disappear into the beautiful, dark mystery of sleep. The story is over. The dream is here. Good night.